Okay, testing. 1 second, everyone. I'm still getting my setups here, and I'm trying to see if anyone's showing up. Has anyone shown up? Ah, not that I can see. All right, cool. And I'm looking down because I have a screen at the bottom here. But anyway, hopefully people will show up. Hopefully people will arrive. We'll just play Pokemon in the meantime. I really do hope people pop up. It's always scary. Yes, I can pull off the dance. Oh, yay, she's smiling at me. Oh, thanks. Wait, can I trigger it? Ah, yeah, she definitely is. Alright, so that's pretty cool. Oh, there's one concurrent viewer. I really hope that's not me. We'll just do a Dynamax adventure in the meantime. I'm pretty sure it's public, yeah. Alright. We're gonna go for anything. Let us go into the adventure. Ah, 0 concurrent viewers. Excellent. That is unfortunate. Alright. Don't invite others. I'm going to take... I've never used a Poltegeist. I don't know. Am I... Wait. 1 second. 1 second. Am I playing? Am I up? I think I am. Yes, I am. Alright, great. Right. Okay, Poltegeist it is. Alright, let's see. I hope we're gonna get a cool legendary after all this is said and done. No, still no one showing up. Oh, I hope Discord gives the announcement. Where's my phone? Okay, there's a fairy type. What beats fairy? It's poison. Ah, Skelly, hey. Skelly, did the Discord show that we're here? Just let me know, Skell. Let me know if you can also hear me. I don't know where to go. I forget what I got. I forgot the moves for Poltegeist. Oh well, we'll see. We have 1 concurrent viewer. That's at least it's Skelly. That's pretty good. At least we have Skelly. Let me just make sure. Yeah, okay, I'm still running. Great. Great. Alright. So we're dealing with Ninjask. That's cool. And I got Dynamax on. Not really anything. Not anything that I'm happy about. So, Skell, how are you doing? Let me just make sure that my stuff... Is it pumping the audio? It is pumping the audio. Yeah, it is. Alright, cool. My audio setup is good. I can hear my stuff. Oh, that's great, Skell. I am pretty excited to play Monster Prom 2 at some point. I am legitimately looking forward to it. I also do want to play, you know, Among Us, because that'll be funny. Preparing for shooting this and next week. Oh, okay, cool. That's cool. What are you going to be shooting? Okay, so Ninjask. This is not the worst fight I've had so far here. This is pretty good. I'm pretty happy. We're doing pretty great. That was actually really painless. Some school stuff. Oh, okay. Alright, yeah. That's cool, Skell. That's cool. How many more years of school do you have, Skell? Yeah, I'll throw a Pokeball just to catch it. Then the year is like actually over. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, shit. No more school anything. Oh, that'll be great. Okay, we have 3 concurrent viewers. This is amazing. All right. Actually, I think I'm good without it. I don't think I want it. Alfie took it. That's cool. Okay, I got Poltegeist. Poison. Oh, I wish I could have gone for the Wilmer. Sure. What? That's not what I wanted. How? Did the buttons not work? That's not what I wanted. Let's see who's there. This is Nervy. Heikel? Hello Nervy. I have 2 years after this one because I just started this year. Okay, gotcha, Skull. Alright, let's see. Well, this is not where I want it to be, but here we are. Psyshock. Ah, excellent move. Excellent move, Alfie. Ah, excellent. I can really only hope we get through this relatively quickly. Oh, excellent. That was a great move. We're doing great, guys. Oh my gosh, we're doing so great. Everyone's doing great. Skitter Smack. Huh. That's the first time I've seen that move. Psyshock. Okay. Not the best. I'm really hoping for that Vika Volt to use Bug Buzz. Yes, yes, that is great. So just one more attack and we're done here. This is excellent. Thingamabob, that Ninjask is probably gonna get it. Oh yeah, it did. Oh, John. Oh, hey, Blurry. And John's here peddling his Solgaleo. Oh, okay, cool, cool, cool. I don't need it, John, but if someone needs it, hopefully they'll see that message. Did I need to catch the little pony? Ah, whatever. It's alright. Blurry, how are you doing? And Google, also, how are you doing? And John, of course, how are you doing? John, have you pulled anything good on Fire Emblem? I think I'm good without it. Wait, I didn't think writing an end race class weapons would be hard, and I mean homebrew style of hard. I didn't think end world would be hard. There's a steel over there. I wonder what that thing is. I don't... Psychic. I'm not really sure how this is going to work out for me at the end here. Wait, I should have gone for steel, right? Because steel is good against fairy. Shooty. Hey! Oh, hey, Miguel. Miguel asks, are we getting My Hero Academia spoilers? Well, Miguel, today I saw that One Piece has their spoilers out. Like, One Piece has quite a lot of spoilers. So it feels to me like if One Piece has... Like, this morning One Piece had a lot of spoilers. I feel like maybe the fact that the One Piece spoilers are out kind of says that, you know, someone has the magazine. I'm checking the website right now. Do a quick thing. We might get lucky. It'd be nice if we got lucky. But One Piece always gets theirs early. The website I use still don't have it, so we'll have to wait. I mean, I'm hoping, Miguel. I'm hoping, because then if we can talk about it today, that'd also be great. I got a question for you. If you could get a movie from Studio Trigger from any one of their works, what would it be? A movie from Trigger from any one of their works. Not Little Witch Academia, because I already know what they can do with those kind of movies. Let me think. I don't really care for Kill la Kill all that much. I know people like really like it, but it's not my thing. Maybe Kisniver. Maybe. Maybe a movie for when supernatural battles became commonplace. That'd be pretty good. I'd be pretty okay with that. Darling in the Franxx, maybe adapt more of the novel. Maybe even a Darling in the Franxx alternate universe. I'd be quite alright with that. Yeah, no, Google. I don't really got much ideas on Trigger movies. But at the same time, it's just because I don't really feel a lot for Trigger movies. I think I'll get the Orbital. I think I'll take the Orbital. I'm not sure if it'll help us, but I think I'll take it. And Darling in the Franxx, but doesn't end like garbage. Yeah, pretty much. An item to be held by Pokemon. Slightly boosting the power of physical moves. Citrus Berry? Yeah, that'll have to do. If I had a Ninjask, the Muscle Band will make more sense. Oh wait, Dungeons and Dragons homebrew campaign. My mind and thumbs were not in sync. Okay, for months I was looking for a job, and then my driver last minute didn't want to take me, even though she starts work in the noon. And mine was at 9 a.m. Yes, it was a 5-hour walk. Yes, it was a 27-minute drive, but a job is a job. Huh. Oh, that's rough, Blurry. Oh, that sounds like a rough day in general, man. How the legendary collection going? Random. It's going pretty alright, actually. I think we're doing pretty good. So, guys, I'm just waiting for Black Fox and Master Gray, and then we can talk about more stuff. Then we can talk about whatever writing topic we're doing today. Skelly already knows what writing topic we're doing. 1 second, it's locking in. Give it a second. Ah, there we go. Great. I will struggle bug. I should have taken the steel, but I kind of screwed myself up there when my thing went out of sync. Starting watching Dammy season 3. Oh, good. Someone poisoned it. All right, let me just make sure I don't miss anything that you guys are saying. The legendary collection. I got a few. I have Rayquaza. I've been doing it slowly. Random. Kisniver. Is good, but would like a Panty and Stocking movie. Oh, you know what? Yeah, Panty and Stocking would be pretty good. I'd love a follow-up to that, because that was pretty weird of an ending, right? Yeah, so I meant to say... Yeah. Panty and Stocking would be pretty alright as well. I'd be pretty okay with that. Maybe you know what? I'd be okay with a Gurren Lagann movie, because Trigger is like from the people that made that, right? Like they're comprised from those people. I'd like one of those, but one that makes everything happier, because I'd love for everyone to get a happy ending. You know, I respect the first continuity, but I would love wish fulfillment continuity. Oh, hey Edens. Hey Prower. Other than that, I'm reading a web novel called My Vampire System, and it's getting a webtoon adaptation soon, and I think it's the same studio that does the solo leveling webtoon. Oh, nice. Big moment happening in the latest manga chapter for Rent a Girlfriend. Oh, nice. Wait, does Gurren Lagann already have movies? Oh yeah, they do have movies. I just remember. Oh, never mind. Shoot, I forgot all about that movie. Oh, but in that movie, like, Kamina comes back as like a giant super robot, right? If I recall correctly. He came back reincarnated as like the super awesome, epic world or like universe destroyer Gurren Lagann or something like that. Oh wow, that's so old. My memory. Oh my gosh, thank you, Skell. I totally forgot. Okay, so it goes back to Darling and the Franxx. Catch 5 Ultra Bees to get free Poipole. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks, John. We're gonna go do the Reggie quest. We keep Tapu Lele. Yes, of course. Guys, I've been following the situation with the Pokemon leaks, and it's just really interesting, the stuff that's coming out from the Sword and Shield beta leak. Just some interesting little details there with what they were doing. Like the first Sword and Shield title screen looked really good. And then other little things that were kind of cool to see was that they plan to have like X and Y sequels or something like that. Let me just see. So Trip, how are you enjoying By the Grace of God's anime? Oh, random. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping to make a video about it relatively soon. Just like it's going to be one of those episode roundup videos kind of thing, where I talk about my general impressions. I feel it's really wholesome. I kind of wish that the characters were more aged up, because I don't like, I don't like seeing little kids, especially like the female love interest. I don't really get behind little kid aesthetics. I'm not a fan, but that's a personal thing. I put that aside usually for whenever I'm watching these kind of things. I feel like it's really wholesome. I do like some things, but I think the recent episode, so that would be episode 4. Episode 4 wasn't, I don't think it was great in terms of world building, because episode 4 just kind of showed like some stupid parts within the anime, or I need to be careful like saying this because I don't have the episode to reference it immediately. But there were some troubles with the world building in episode 4. Like the issue with the town, how the town's costs were going down, or like how people weren't being paid to do the cleanup work. So for anyone who doesn't know, like this episode just had a plot about government officials apparently weren't paying people to clean up the local latrines, which was causing an issue. But the way that they went about it to make the character have to deal with the problem, I think was relatively nonsensical. Because you had a situation that the guildmaster is aware of, and he is an authority figure, but the guildmaster told it to an adventurer and didn't bother to tell the people who could actually do something about it, even though they're in town. It's just the chain of communication that occurred in that episode didn't fully make sense to me. I felt like that was relatively contrived. Definitely, I would say it was like a weak point of it, but the emotional aspects of the episode were actually still relatively strong. Ooh, a Vaporeon! I don't think I got you. Just getting my thoughts here. I think this is going to make more sense to Random if he's the one watching it. But yeah, it was an issue of I don't see if this is if the anime is telling you this is a significant problem. I don't see why you wouldn't take this to the highest authority that is currently in the town with you. Like that didn't make sense to me because the main character goes ahead and does it, and immediately we see that there's something going on. The guildmaster could have just gone ahead and done that himself. If anything, it speaks really badly on the main character's benefactors, because what kind of situation are you in that your people don't feel comfortable talking to you? There was also a very critical point in the episode where it was saying that people are not going to work for work. Oh, sorry, they're not going to work if the work isn't worthwhile. And I'm just thinking like that's a falsehood. By human nature in this current day and age, that is 100% a falsehood. We do know that people are willing to work for shit. We've seen it multiple times. We know that this happens with illegal immigrants. They will work for shit. And then even like in Europe has all kinds of weird situations for people who are traveling in between European countries. So the episode tells you, oh yeah, you know, like the common folk who live in the slums, they're not going to work for the little money that they're getting because it's not worth it. And I'm like, no, they totally would work. This is a human rights abuse situation. There's people who work only to have a place over their head in Europe, and they work on farms and are trapped on the farms. There's even travel advisories telling people to be careful working on farms in exchange for room and board. And you're telling me that this is how it works in this world? No. Like that was a significant setting breaker that's made worse knowing how aggressively human nature is taken advantage of in these particular day and age, especially when it's a super publicized issue. So for the world building for By the Grace of Gods, definitely took a few hits down for me, Random. But only in that episode. But at the same time, like isekais don't usually have good world building. It depends on where the focus is. Like, you know, if you have good world building in an isekai, it's because you have an isekai who specifically cares about the status of the world. Oh, here we are. Peony, how's things? You found something? Yep. This is where the giant's supposed to be. Yep. Okay, what's it called? The Terrible Titans Lurking Locked Away. Okay, that's a mouthful. But yeah, no, man. That was probably like so far with Grace of Gods. World building took a hit for me, and you know I have my bias against having children characters as the main leads, but I'll get over that one. Overall, it reminds me a lot of Rune Factory. Like whenever I see the opening for it, I'm always just thinking the Rune Factory opening. If you guys know the DS game. All right, so I thought this was pretty clever. Let ring the piercing note that will wake the giant of steel. So I thought that was pretty clever. I knew immediately what to do. I tried this last week, but right after I finished the stream. I do kind of wish we had more braille, but it's pretty simple. It's a whistle. When I saw the piercing note, I'm thinking it's the whistle. That I had to think like, what is the most low effort thing that Game Freak could do? So this is new. I haven't seen this puzzle before. I'm excited. All right, so it lights up. So is there anything going on over here? It's looking down at me. Alright, so I'm gonna go here, here. Maybe also we gotta save, because I think this might be Registeel, if I recall. This isn't really a puzzle, though. Unless it penalizes me. Something changed in the air. Okay. Let me read your guys' comments real quick here, man. Before I forget. Alright, so he missed the last chance. Okay, wait, what about Monster Musume Season 2? Monster Musume has a very weird manga release schedule, so I don't know. Darling in France gets a film, but it's live action Netflix, and Jaleel White plays 02. Okay. Finished 4 Clue by catching Primarina. Same here, but I don't let it hinder my enjoyment. Yeah, I don't let it hinder my enjoyment. It's just, you know, that was a talking point. Darling in France got the Netflix treatment. Oh, yeah, some corrupt government. Okay, sometimes I have to remind myself that the age of consent is lower in Japan. Yeah, but the prefectures have comparable age rates. Oh. Let me just get that. Yeah, not everyone can get a nice treatment when it comes to jobs and such in the real world. 50 cents is better than 0 for many people. Employers take advantage of that. Yep. Okay, so we have Quizzer. Hunter is here. Hello, Hunter. Quizzer, Registeel. Okay, cool. Got to pick back up my Pokemon. Great, let's do it. I want to check it out. Man, I really hope Master Gray and Black Fox show up soon. We already had 16 people. Hopefully the world building and Grace of Gods don't hit too hard after this. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it'll be fine, right? I think it's there more for the emotional aspect, and the emotional aspect does come through. What's the second ability that we have? Oh, I came into this with paralysis. Excellent. Well, Calyrex, what level are you? Level 80. Okay, so that shouldn't be too bad. Do we have any paralyzers? We have... It'd be Dio. Dio would be the paralyzer. So... Just thinking about what I want to do here. Let's try Psychic. I wonder... The Reggies aren't in the in Dynamax Adventures, right? It wouldn't make sense for them to be in there. Okay, so we'll Psychic it again. Hopefully it doesn't have self-destruct. I don't think it should. Okay, good. We're just hitting each other with pretty big attacks here. Okay. I think Registeel is my favorite of the Reggies. I like the color scheme of black and the steel. So I think it's one of my favorite color schemes. Alright, let's throw a Pokeball at it. I would love it if we could catch it in a Pokeball, but I gotta remember that the rates for legendary Pokemon are abysmal. Yeah, this is gonna be a long one. Let's see. I guess we could go Dusk Ball. Wouldn't be anything bad to go Dusk Ball. Has better odds. Alright. Let me see here. So special attack goes up by 1 stage if you KO Pokemon is a second ability. Oh, thank you, Random. What do you care about more in story? World building or character developing? I actually would be okay without character development after a certain point. Like, One Piece doesn't have character development, and I'm quite alright with that. It really depends. World building becomes important if the world is what's motivating the story, right? Like, if the world's constant changes are what's leading the plot along for the main characters, or getting them into conflict, then obviously you need to have a really fleshed out world to, like, really make it worthwhile, because at some point you're going to be watching the development of a world through the viewpoint of the characters. That's what typically ends up happening with some world building stories, so you do want to have it be relatively tight. Otherwise, if the story is just a power fantasy where a guy's just playing around, I don't really need the world building to be all that strong. Like, the world building at that point is just going to be there for the needs of the character. And at that point, I don't care about character development either. I'd care more about character interactions. I love seeing characters talk to each other. And that's like the big make it or break it point for me. Nice! Registeel was caught! Woo! That's the make it or break it point for me. Oh, wow. Nebby, you are so powerful. Good for you, Nebby. So yeah, that's how. So the way I would structure it would be character interactions at the very top, world building, and then character development. Now, mind you, like there's some situations where character development will be higher than world building, but it depends. Like it's all like whether it's a world-driven story or a character-driven story. It's rumored this Pokemon was born deep underground in the planet's mantle, and that it emerged on the surface 1,000 years ago, or sorry, 10,000 years ago. Nice, we got Registeel. Woo! All right, anyone just play and just max their starters? That's what I do. It's quite interesting. Oh yeah, no, I do that too, Hunter. Well, I did that when I was a kid, right? To be completely honest, like about it, have you planned to collaborate with anyone? Hey, Anime Revolution. People ask me this sometimes. I mean, I'll do like video collaborations with people on Discord, mostly because I like them. It depends. I don't think I don't want to be accountable to anyone else. I just don't want to work with other people. I just like being a shut-in. I like being by myself. Because of that, that's why it gets a little bit different for me. It's like I'm an introvert. Working with other people takes a lot of energy. There's a handful of people that I'd be fine collaborating with, but they're the people I came up with on YouTube, so I'd be fine to lend them a hand or just talk to them or kind of stuff. Okay, far into the giant's bed, on the temple's door or strange words, let the blah 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 change 1. The door remains firmly shut. In a snowslide slope. Okay, I've seen that one. Where green meets snow in the giant's bed lies a temple. Yep, we got that one. And then this one. On the distant pass of 3-point pass lies a temple where 2 giants sleep. Okay, cool. That's where the new ones are. Beep, 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 beep. Hey! Okay, come again. You've gone and met the steel giant Registeel? Smash and work, Chief. Now take the energy and go catch the others. I will. I just love catching tours, man. Alright, let me just make sure. I think, Trip, you get Pokemon with thoughts on recent One Piece chapter? Oh, I read it. I read it today. Hey, X-Speed. Oh, excellent. Okay, so Black Fox is here. We're gonna go into things because I can't wait any longer, and I do want to get this started. I do wish Master Gray was here, but can't do much about that. Let me just very quickly do a quick run around this area. I want to spot where Regirock is, and then we'll get started talking about the topic for today. I think it's gonna be a good topic. Roaring Sea Caves, tunnel to the top, path to the peak, snowslide slope. I do wonder where that other Reggie is, but I think it'd be. I have the clues, but I think we can just go straight to Reggie Ice. We can just go straight to Reggie Ice. Ah, well, won't let me fly there. Great, 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 great. Nope. I forget how to use the bike. Shoot. I forgot which button's the bike. Ah, there it is. Alright, cool. Oh, Nidoqueen. Oh, I'll catch you another time, Nidoqueen. I guess we could go also towards the giant tree over there. Man, the Nidos, definitely one of my first favorite Pokemon. I do like how Pokemon-y they are. They are the quintessential example of what I think a Pokemon should be. That's a Polty, guys. Oh, that's the thingamajig. Oh, there's so many cool... Oh, Jesus. There's so many cool Pokemon in this area. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm still here. Okay, let me just very quickly... So, good news, Trip. I finally ended my 4.25 rate on the... It was a bad idea. Adrift Camilla. Oh, Prower, that sucks. That sucks. I've gotten nothing Prower. I've wasted about 80 orbs and I got nothing. I'm really upset. I'm very upset. Okay. Let me just very quickly to answer Eden's on One Piece. You know, Eden's, the most incredible thing right now that is making me want to go back and read the chapters is that whole situation with how Wano feels about Orochi. It's just like I need to go back and I need to really like wonder whether or not my suspension of disbelief is in danger here. I don't think it will, because One Piece tends to be idealistic when it comes to these kind of points. I do find it kind of unreasonable that no one fibbed to Orochi before, but you know, whatever. It's just one of those things. As for what Kaido is talking about, I'm very excited for the next chapter. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Kiku's injury at the end I thought was really cool. I'm interested. But yeah, like that first bit at the beginning with the Wano citizens, that's like, I could believe it when it came from the Minks, that incredible identity that was solidified there. But when you look at Wano, there's so many bad elements in Wano in terms of the population. Like, even with the people that Komurasaki screwed over, those 3 guys that abandoned their families, you have a lot of legitimately bad people in the area, and I don't see how that information doesn't slip out to Orochi. That's the big thing. Wait, let me just make sure. I wanted to go deep. Put it on paper. Mona's broken strong for her. Oh, you put her? Okay. Fibbed about rebellion. Oh, no, I mean, like, okay, I want to make sure I got this right. You know, just like, what I'm referring to there, Edens, is just everyone in the capital celebrating Odin, right? That's how I read it. Did I misunderstand what I was reading? I might have misunderstood what I was reading. Like, honestly. Okay, guys. So at this point, we're going to begin the actual talk. Today was going to be a writing podcast, only for a little bit. We were going to be talking about... We were going to be talking about... One second, let me just switch the title on the thing. Oh yeah, I saw that Random Trainer X. It is going to be animated. That's going to be pretty interesting. Okay, let me just... we're going to talk about writing. Fight scenes. We're going to be talking about writing fight scenes. Where's my notes? Shit. I forgot my notes. So let me just put this here. And let me just make sure everything's good. I just want to make sure all my settings are up to date on YouTube. Make sure nothing's going wrong. Excellent. Great. I'm back. Did you see the new Godzilla trailer? Oh, you know what? I saw the news. I haven't seen the trailer itself. Okay. So, let me make sure I have everything set up so that you guys can see what I'm seeing here. I think it should work. I've been honing my skills on using this setup. So, give me a quick second here. And live stream teach. All right, cool. Guys, let me just make sure I have my notes. Great, I have my notes. Oh, oops. That came out a bit. All right, coolly. Let's see. And Edens, feel free to continue talking to me about One Piece, man. Also, in Tokinawa Thingamajig, last mile was real Itsuka's past. Okay. All right, so we're going to be talking about, like I said, Skelly, are you there? I hope you're there. Because this is partly for you. But yeah, no, Edens, what did you think about the chapter? Like, I value your opinion when it comes to One Piece. Because I know you're invested in it. And there was someone else who talks about One Piece too here. And I forget the name. If I saw the name, I'd remember. Ah, good. Master Gray, you got here right in time. Thank God. So, here's what we're talking about. Writing. Wait, am I using the right thing? Yeah, I am. So, we're talking about... Alright, Peter Grill manga is still going. Yes. Writing fight scenes. Woo! Awesome! Whoa! Pow! Awesome! Alright, so we're all anime fans. A few of you guys are also wanting to write stuff. I can only imagine that you're going to be using anime stylings when it comes to your fight scenes. To some degree, we all want to have cool fight scenes in our writings. I know for sure I like having really cool fight scenes in my writings. Now, there are some problems when it comes to writing fight scenes because when we're looking at anime in particular, light novel adaptations do not typically have good fight scenes. I was gonna get you guys some really good examples, but my life is busy. I could not get you guys good examples. Instead, you'll have to settle for Danmachi. I did pull some examples from Danmachi because I was doing I was preparing my Danmachi volume review, so I was able to, two birds with one stone and pull out some scenes. And we will analyze those scenes at the end, and we'll talk about what was going on here, why was it happening, because one thing that we do know for sure is that Danmachi is heavily edited for marketability. So because of that, we can see a little bit of the writer process going on in there, and we can see the marketability process going on in there. Ultimately, before we begin, your fight scenes are most likely going to be destroyed by the editing process because of what fight scenes ultimately are and what they ultimately do to the pacing of a book. Ultimately, fight scenes are also the place where you're going to be making a lot of compromises, and fight scenes are going to be the place where you're going to be taking a lot of considerations in their construction. There are some general tips. Because I also have a bias towards fight scenes, I also took the liberty of reading up what other writers were saying about fight scenes to make sure that my advice was at least like 60% valid. At least 60%, because some of the things that I do might very well be bad habits that I probably shouldn't be doing. So let me just make sure. Has anyone ever told themselves a story and gone so far that they try to put it on paper, you can't remember the start, so you keep deciding to tell yourself the story? Oh, that's unfortunate, Hunter. Just enjoying Power Skills going crazy right now from week to week. Edens, man, they gotta realize that One Piece is just go with the flow, man. You gotta make sure you can conceptualize what luck does in One Piece. How is your contest novel going? Master Gray, truthfully, I have not done anything since last week. I got too busy. I've only been able to do like 1 to 2 hours of YouTube every day, and that's hasn't been working out for me. And then there's other problems happening with my actual novel. So it's just from conversations with the editor. It's just I have to switch up my distribution strategy, so that's been taking up a lot of my time. Like this past week was mostly me reading up on Amazon trends and all that, just to make sure I was making the right choice when we do come to release. So unfortunately, logistics took up my time. But for the contest novel, I think we are in rank 11 after not doing anything. So I'm pretty close to breaking into top 10. I feel like if I have a good week where I can just focus on it, I think it'll be good. I think I already have the idea for the overall story. It'll be pretty easy just to throw it in there and probably break top 5. We do have really good reader metrics on it as well, and people seem to be very interested in it, which is unfortunate because I wish they weren't so interested. But yeah, no, rank 11 out of 50, and we only did minimal effort. That is the power of being on trend. Did you ever get to read the webtoon comic Dungeon Master I suggested a while ago? That's a weird one. The Dungeon Master. No, Ryan, I have not been able to read that one yet. I have some crazy fight scenes. I also end up putting symbiote like Venom in my story, and I end up having like 6 symbiotes in my story. A few of the along with the original 3. Okay, that's cool, Hunter. That's cool. All right, so fight scenes. All right, so first off, let's begin. Let me just make sure. So what I want to start off with saying with fight scenes, have you watched By the Grace of God? Oh yeah, I have, Outlaw. So what I want to begin with in general is one of the first things you have to do with your fight scenes is that you have to make peace with the fact that people might not like reading fight scenes. Fight scenes are the kind of thing that are very likely to be skimmed, just because sometimes if they're done badly, they don't really amount to much. So when you're writing your fight scenes, you do have to be in a particular mindset. When you're writing them, you have to be, how would I say it? You have to make sure they're not vapid. You have to make sure they're not empty. You have to make sure they're not just happening because you wanted to have a conflict on the paper, right? Your fight scenes need to have purpose. So you need to write some kind of purpose there. When it comes to fight scenes, you're not going to please everyone. What it ultimately comes down to is that you have to make a situation where the worst thing that the reader will do is skim the fight scene, because sometimes that's just what's going to go down. So writing fight scenes, first thing, worst case scenario for you is the reader skims. That's the worst case scenario you should be aiming for. You should never be aiming for a situation where someone complains about your fight scenes. You should never be in a situation where someone says this author wastes time writing fight scenes. You don't want to be in that situation. You don't want to be in a situation where anyone is saying like you waste time, but fight scenes are more likely to get it than not because it's very easy to screw up a fight scene. All right, so with that out of the way, let's ask the question: what is a fight scene? Now, my style from last week, guys, it's always, you got to ask yourself the basic questions. You have to understand why you're doing the things you're doing. And I will answer your comments in a while. And yeah, Ryan, it is still on my list, man. Don't worry. I will answer your comments in once we get past this first section. Oh, Master Gray had an interesting comment. Anyway, I will read all your comments in a second. So what is a fight scene? A fight scene, really, it's the simplest. It's the simplest. And forgive me if I misspell. I'm just going to spell like not under. It's the simplest, most understandable conflict. So what does that mean when we say it's the simplest, most understandable conflict? What that means to say is that when a reader sees a fight scene, they understand what it is functionally. They understand immediately that there are two opposing parties. They understand immediately that this type of conflict can be easily resolved, and the resolution is very easy to understand. The thing with the fight scene is an understandable resolution. It's very easy to convey a winner or a loser, or maybe a nuanced winner and a nuanced loser, or maybe a winner in a particular regard and a loser in a particular regard. Very easy to convey, very easy to get through. When you look at Shonen Jump, I always have this criticism. The majority of Shonen Jump conflicts are resolved is resolved in violence. It's unfortunate, but violence is more exciting. I would love it more often if we had more people like Naruto talking their way to compromise, because that's what we strive for in the real world, but that's not exciting. So fight scenes are understandable, exciting conflicts that have clear-cut winners when it comes to the conflicts. Of course, things get very difficult when you have philosophy getting involved in a fight scene, because then you have a situation like Natsu from Fairy Tail where you can say like Natsu actually represents, even though he's winning all the time and he's doing things for his friends, he represents might makes right. It doesn't matter how interesting of a philosophy the other person has. Natsu is too stupid to understand it, so he's going to steamroll it. So it does become a little bit more complex when you layer on more points of attack, but that's what you have to understand. For a fight scene, it's ultimately the simplest, most understandable conflict. So keep in mind that it's a conflict, because then we'll ask the next question, like, why are you writing a fight scene? There is another question that's going to come out from this, from the first part, but we're just going to go into this part first. And of course, you guys can always tell me something here. Power level, no trip, and power scalars. Hey, Michael. And just to make it clear, when it comes to power levels and scalars, they tend to happen more with manga than they do with actually writing literature. But okay, why are you writing a fight scene? So this is important to ask, because this is where you might spot the first weakness in your thing. Here are some reasons. You guys can also answer that question, like why would you write a fight scene? Maybe we can see if I have the same reasons you guys have. So we could say because it's a staple. It's a staple of the genre. So this one, you're writing a fight scene because you're expected to write a fight scene, right? It's a staple of the genre. Maybe you need excitement. Like I said, fight scenes are exciting. You need excitement. So in this one, you're looking at your book. You're thinking, oh, we've been doing nothing. I need some really quick conflict. I don't have any characters set up. I just need a sense of tension to pop up in the book for right now. You can already hear it, but that's not really good reasoning. And then you need to convey an idea. So when you say you need to convey an idea, when you're saying that, this can actually be many things. This is one answer that turns into many other answers. Because an idea could be character development. You could be conveying character development through it. You can be conveying power levels through it. You can be conveying power exposition through it. You can be conveying characterization through it. So you can be conveying a sense of dread, maybe a sense of atmosphere through it. A fight scene can actually do quite a lot of things dependent on how you write the fight scene. Let's see. Let me just very quickly make sure. Cyberpunk was delayed. Yes, I heard about that. A character has reached a level of desperation where they don't think they can talk themselves out of it. Okay, so that'd be why. Okay, that's pretty interesting. That's way more complex. It should be dependent on those three. Not just abstract. Yep. Okay, cool. So, I just read those comments real quick. So, why are you writing a fight scene? Those are the three ideas. So, ideally, you shouldn't be writing for the first reason. It's a staple of the genre. This is more likely to happen if you are writing on demand. So like if you were writing for a contest and it's an action story contest, I could see that being one of your reasons. That's not a good reason. When it comes to writing fight scenes in particular, this works for writing for a contest, work in general or that approach works for things we talked about last week, like formulating a story. But once you're formulating conflict, you should not be doing things because they're a staple. You should be thinking a little bit more about your conflict. Ideally, maybe putting in the hero's journey into it, because just going off of what the genre requires will eventually shoot you in the foot unless you're using story structures within it. If you need excitement, you should probably really think about why it is you're thinking that you need excitement at a particular point in your novel. Because again, this is an issue where if you need excitement, you better start building up to it. So that'll probably adjust your novel a little bit. That's like what Skelly said. Writing is rewriting, so you do want to think about that. If you are in a situation where you think you need excitement and that's why you're going to change something in your story, you need to think about why that happened in the first place and make some adjustments before and after in order to make that moment of excitement feel more worthwhile. If you're doing this for excitement, you should make that fight ultimately worth it, and we'll talk about that there. And then if you're needing to convey an idea, this is actually the point that we're going to be talking about the most, because this is where the most merit is. So if you can't answer the first question of why you're writing a fight scene, like you just feel like you want it, but you don't have the words to articulate it, we can move on to the next question, and this should be just the natural question as well. What do you want to convey in your fight scene? And I see that Ryan and Skelly are talking about the very specifics of what goes into a fight. What they're talking about is also like heavily dependent on your genre, because your genre and the expectations of your genre will change the flavor of your fight scene. So what do you want to convey in your fight? Give me a second. Writing it out. What do you want to convey in your fight? So I have a few things here. Let me just make sure I got it. All right, cool. All right, so what do you want to convey your fight? That's the question you ask. So what you have to understand here is, again, we're trying to avoid skimming, or we're trying to minimize skimming. In trying to minimize it, we'll probably avoid all the other problems. We're trying to avoid skimming. That should be the first thing that you want to. That should be the first thing that you want to accomplish with your fight scene. Let me just make sure I got my notes here correctly. Okay, here we go. Yeah, we want to avoid. Excellent. So in asking this question, what do you want to convey in your fight, and knowing that we are trying to avoid skimming, what this ultimately leads to is an understanding. Now, when you go back up here and you look at the fact that a fight is the most simple, understandable form of conflict, you have to start applying your conflict rules into your fight scene. So what that means is what you want to convey in your fight and what you want to avoid skimming with is you need to have change. There needs to be a fundamental change that occurs after that fight. That fight leads to a fundamental change. Now, this change could be either for the story, the characters, trying to write as fast as I can, or the readers. If your fight does not offer a significant change for the story, the characters, or the readers, why would I not skim that? That seems like a pretty big waste of time. If you can't have your fight giving me a fundamental change, I'm not going to regret skimming it. So that's what you have to think about. When you're writing your fight scene, really think about what it is that you have changed in the process of doing that fight. And you guys are still going about the little logistics. I'm very excited to read all of that when I get the chance here. So let me just make sure. So, in going here, what we have to ask as a part of this question, as we proceed going down, sorry, my drawings are not the best right now. You have to ask, how do you make a fight more worthwhile? Would a briefing help your writing? Yeah, probably. How do you make a fight more worthwhile? I like that you guys are still talking about the logic. And just to answer, Eden, so how the results of the fight scene affect what's to come in your story? Yes. You should always have a fight that has a fundamental impact on the story. And we'll talk more about what's a worthless impact and what's actually a good impact on the story. So we'll actually cover it here. How do you make a fight more worthwhile? So now we say worthwhile because we want to talk about what exactly would make it so a reader says, I shouldn't have skipped that fight scene. Ideally, the fight scene should always convey something critical that the reader would regret missing, right? So, things that you could convey in a fight scene. Let's cover how do you make a fight more worthwhile. So, general things that you could do. You can tell a story. Your fight scene could tell a story. To get you the mindset for what you need here. Oh, Michael, I'm not sure when I'm going to play Maneater. So, sorry guys. You want to tell a story, and I'll tell you a funny little story here. So I talked to a monk, he's a Buddhist monk, and I was talking to him about sparring, because I felt like, well, sparring is relatively violent. Like, how does a Buddhist monk internalize sparring? Because monks also have a history of engaging in martial arts. Well, it's actually pretty simple. The story he told me is that, well, your opponent essentially is doing you a service. He is taking the place of your karma. So if your karma is saying that you need some pain, maybe your opponent is going to be the one that is about to work that out for you. So for him, sparring in a fight would turn into a bit of a karmic exchange. So when you think about that, you think about the idea like, well, shit, like karma is actually a pretty personal subject. It is something that only divinity knows. You don't really know what your karma is. But that changes the entire flow of what a fight scene could be when it comes to telling a story. So when you're talking about telling a story in a fight scene, you could have this narration within the story. The character is talking about the other thing. Like the opponent could become a manifestation of the character's own hang-ups, his own bad habits. He could tell himself, like, it's because of my bad choices that I'm ultimately having to face this particular person. It's because of my bad choices that I'm not able to, like, get this person. I'm not able to land a good hit on him. You can tell a story in that combat that ultimately tells you how your character is growing up, how he's developing, how this conflict is shaping him. So this telling a story within a fight scene, you end up having real-time development. And it gets much cooler when you are able to time the pain with the moment that the character learns a lesson. If you have the character making breakthroughs, it would also be very interesting to have the character breaking bones, or the character like pushing himself and breaking boundaries as he has these mental breakthroughs. Maybe like the moment he has a mental breakthrough, he finally lands that one hit. In this way, you can make a fight scene really artistic while making it also very engaging, because what you ultimately do, choreography can be very boring to describe on paper, but it doesn't really stay boring if you have that opportunity to share how the character feels about what he's going through as well. If he adds meaning to the fight, it becomes much more engaging. Oh, hey, Monch. Ryan was asking, so you use the fight as a metaphor? Yeah, you can use a fight as a metaphor. If you use a fight as a bigger metaphor, that is amazing. That's going to be a good fight. You can already tell if you're using a metaphor, that's just going to require you to know what you're doing, and it's going to require you to know Oh, see ya, Michael. It requires you to have a really good control of the English language because you need to be able to show which parts are metaphor and which part are the actual physical parts. So you want to convey a story. That's one way to make a fight more worthwhile. You can convey power exposition. So this is my personal favorite. When people don't know what a character has up their sleeves, I love talking about powers. I know that this is not the most profitable thing. I know that I'm already making a sacrifice. I know that it's going to be boring for some people. I don't care. I love talking about powers. I want people to understand what powers my characters have. This doesn't happen that often. It's usually a one and done for power exposition. But let's say like I want a character to be really respected, right? Like let's say this character is a master of 100 spells, right? I want to have a fight that's going to unleash like 80 of those spells in quick succession and with mastery, right? I don't want to be in a situation like stupid Kakashi from Naruto who says he's the master or he's copied 1,000 ninjutsu, and at the end of the day I only ever see him use under 10 or under 20 by the end of the series in the main manga. I don't want a situation like that. I don't want an informed badass. I want someone that people see like, oh shit, this person knows 50 different spells. This seems like a really hardcore person. And then also I want to reveal what the opponent has, because maybe I want to use the opponent in the future. If readers know what the opponent is capable of in the present, then when I bring her back in the future, they're going to be like, oh shit, this person is actually really, really good at dealing with this particular problem. So we could have it like that. This is where power exposition is actually very useful. But again, power exposition is very tricky. It's going to become very dense immediately. You're going to have to break it up with the choreography. You might be noticing a little trend here. The choreography exists specifically to break up the dense of the text that will be produced if you're writing metaphor or if you're writing power exposition. Let me just make sure. How do you feel about fight scenes shown in the first person perspective? Those can work. Any first person, third person doesn't matter. First person is going to be a little bit harder if you're doing power exposition, because first person you need to have a character that understands what's going on in the fight to be able to give that exposition. Third person you can do exposition anyway. Third person is better for if you're doing power exposition. First person is better if you're doing unreliable narrator power exposition. Just keep that in mind, Monj. First person is better for showing pain as well. So if you wanted more emotional setbacks, you do want to lean more towards first person. So give a power ceiling. Yeah, power ceilings are also a form of power exposition. Let's see, I made Lupin. Okay. Wheels a broadsword. Okay, that's cool. Did you see my comment? Master Gray? No, I didn't. Master Gray, could you just repost it, please? Okay, so here we go. Let's continue here. So you have power exposition. And again, guys, we have to be very careful here because we're talking about specifically literary form. The rules change if you're writing manga, because manga doesn't require actually worthwhile fights. Manga just requires visual spectacle. If you're writing a compelling fight on page, it's going to require a different sense of sensibilities. And I'll tell you something about how I write my stories, because the reason I write my stories the way I do is because I'm imagining a comic adaptation. So I want everything to be properly described so that if I have to give it to an artist, I don't have to talk to the artist. I want the artist to be able to draw the image and get enough information from my work to be able to pull it onto the page, which is not a good strategy, honestly, if you were going mainstream. But that's why we have tactics to get through it. So we have power exposition. Anything else? Characterization. It is great if you can reveal things about a character through the way they fight. And you might think like, okay, how do I show off characterization in a fight of all things? Really, it all comes down to you have to ask, why does a character do the things they do? There are things that you can do here. Mind you, there are bad ways of doing characterization, and please do not do any of the cringy ways of doing characterization in a fight. To give a very quick example of characterization, cringy characterization, is like you have two anime dudes, right? They're facing each other down. One of them's wearing all black, and he's putting his hand on his sword, and he's like, I'm going to cut you down right now. Blah, blah, blah. You will feel the I don't know, you'll feel the metal of my blade, and that's his dialogue. And then he steps forward, he dashes past, you go to the next page, he's already 5 steps behind his opponent, the guy's already bleeding everywhere. You know, regular anime manga nonsense. That's stupid. That's worthless. That might pass on a manga, but that's pretty worthless. I've learned nothing about the character other than he is a chuny or an edgelord or just a talker. It's more style over substance. It's worthless. That's not good characterization. That tells you nothing about the character. Not into it. I'll give you an example of what I think is better. Also because, like, honestly, if you're reading a novel that's gone through editorial processes, you're not going to see something as terrible as that, but you might see it in web novels. That's why I'm bringing it up. It sucks. It's dumb. It's a dumb way of bringing characterization into your story. If you're going to be doing things of that level, you need to go back to the drawing board. That's fine if you're writing a parody, but it's not fine if you're writing something serious. So those are general things to make a fight worthwhile, right? You're telling a story, you're giving power characterization, you're giving characterization. The reason those things are worthwhile is because ultimately you're changing something in the reader's understanding. And especially for for characterization. If you can change the reader's understanding of a character with characterization in a fight, that's impressive. You're impressive. So I would like it if people aimed for that more. Matthew also says body language. Yes, body language is a very great way of giving characterization. So that's general stuff. Now we're going to get in the reads, like, in detail. So the general stuff really serves to give you, if you think about it, a framework, an interesting framework. But now, what about the choreography? How do you make choreography interesting? And this is where you really have to make your choices very early on. What kind of fights are you going to be having? Are you going to be having generalized fights where you just kind of like give broad description of like, oh yes, they fight it here, they fight it there, they fight it everywhere, you know, just general broad strokes. You don't want to get into the reads with it. Or are you going to be like super compelling in the moment of the fight? Because, you know, they both have their advantages. Broad strokes gives you the advantage of time and minimizes the chance that you're going to bore your reader. In detail, really risky because most likely people are going to skim it, but it could also be a really wonderful payoff for people who actually do care about detail. So in detail, what can you do to make a fight worthwhile? Convey sudden turns. So this is what makes conflict so interesting. It's when things suddenly shift, when someone is suddenly, they're on the back foot and suddenly something goes right and they are... Master Gray, I missed your comment, so make sure you do give me that comment again. Ryan, I'll read through it in a bit. But yeah, sorry. Convey sudden turns. They're on the back foot. Suddenly they get a second win. The fight starts to shift. That is so exciting. We saw that all over the place with My Hero Academia, with the back and forth between the villains. Sudden turns are really good. So if you imagine it, you know, you have a straight line, right? A straight line when you're reading it as a fight, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be pretty boring because nothing's changed from the beginning of the fight to the end of the fight other than one character is whooping the other character horrifically. Now, mind you, you can use that to like really good effect if you set it up properly by making like an overwhelming display of strength. But at that point, you have to be using other things along with it. But if you have a straight line and then you have like, oh my god, oh whoa, something just went off in another direction, or like, oh my gosh, shit, something just went down in another direction, right? You elevate the levels. So sudden turns are pretty good for fights because all of a sudden that catches the reader's attention. They're thinking like, oh shit, I thought they were gonna win. Something just went wrong. It adds more legitimacy to the combat strength of both people in the fight. It's a pretty good thing to do. You want to convey sudden turns. So this could be as simple as a character is... I'll give you an example. She's running into a fire. She had just tossed a guy into the wall and lit the place up with fire with some fireball magic, right? All of a sudden, her foot goes out. It goes in an aggressive angle. It's so aggressive on the floor that the ground distorts under her. It cracks, it crumbles. She's turned, and all of a sudden, like, her fist goes out into thin air. Except, no, actually, it just smacks something in thin air. There was someone invisible right next to her. So that right there is a sudden turn, and we illustrate the sudden turn by actually having the character turn. And that just tells us that suddenly, we thought that this opponent was going to be creamed against the wall. It looked like that woman was about to go in and smash into that opponent, but all of a sudden the opponent came out with a really interesting skill that required the character suddenly reacting to it. So that is a sudden turn. If you can actually make the sudden turn fit with some kind of difference in the body language, even more interesting, because when we're talking about in detail stuff, what we ultimately want is to make a really nice visceral experience for the reader. If you're doing sudden turns, make sure that you make it really aggressive. You have to make it really harsh. Don't talk in passive voice. You don't want to just walk the character. You don't want to walk the reader into it. You want to give it like all of a sudden. You can even have like maybe the character. Maybe she's in her thought process. She's thinking something like. Oh, I've tossed that person in there. I'm just going to ram into them. And, you can cut the line right there to just signify that her thought process was broken. That's really interesting to read. I think it's very worthwhile to go for that. Master Gray said, repost. I know a fight scene that was poorly adapted from a light novel to an anime. Then the same scene was adapted by the manga into the anime once again for its best version. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's really interesting. But anyway, yeah, sudden turns. Excellent. So that's one way to do it. Sudden turns change the pace of a fight and can make it more interesting for people who are reading it. And then, that fights against skimming, because if the person started reading the fight and they started skimming it because they thought you were worthless, and then they get to the end of the fight and it's all of a sudden like, wait. The guy was winning. What happened that he's, I don't know, dismembered or beheaded? What happened there? That immediately makes them regret skimming over your work. That immediately makes them think like, oh, I got to go back. I got to go back to understand what just happened here. And that is ideally what you want if you're going to be having a skimmer. You want them to understand that you are to be taken seriously when it comes to a certain flavor of fight scene. So convey sudden turns. That's the value there. Force the reader to visualize. Now, Black Fox just said something interesting. The idea that the protagonist is about to win, but something comes out of nowhere. I like it. Gotta be careful with that. You don't want to make it come out of nowhere. The best way to position it, especially if you have first person, is to make your character overconfident. Make your character think like the victory's in the bag, because then when something suddenly happens, it tells the reader that the character made an error in judgment. And there's nothing wrong with characters making errors in judgment, especially because if a first-person narrator is leading the reader into the error in judgment, the reader is also most likely going to make the error in judgment unless they're savvy. So that makes things a lot more emotional for the reading experience. Would this sudden turn approach also apply to curb stomps, for example, to display the power of the antagonist? Yeah. In broad strokes, it would, Ryan. So now we're talking about you guys are also giving this a pretty final interpretation. So I'll also just cover that again because I think I'm neglecting to mention something here. But just answering Ryan, yes. Curb stumps can be sudden turns. Although, Ryan, at that point, you're also bringing in power exposition. You're bringing in power exposition because you're showing how scary of a threat this is. Now, at that point, you are also using the character as an example. You are sacrificing a character in order to bring another character up. There's other things happening in there, but that is technically a sudden turn. Now, what I'm seeing here is that you guys are taking this all very a lot of finality here, but you could have 10 sudden turns in a fight. Another way to call this would be a dramatic beat. It's a beat in a story. A sudden turn ultimately just is there to convey a back and forth. It's there to convey people one-upping each other. It's what makes things more engaging. You could be thinking like, oh man, this guy, he's winning the fight. Like that. Oh my gosh, shit, this guy just pulled out a really interesting move that almost got my guy. That's a sudden turn. And then you're thinking, is he actually going to be able to beat this character? And then your guy comes back in, he pulls out another move that you already knew about before. You're like, oh, yeah, he can do it. And then the other guy, again, trumps him. So at this point, the longer you have a series of sudden turns going on, the more risky things become. You need to have more setup to justify the things that people are pulling out. You need to actually be putting in more effort into your character's mindset, because you need to kind of start explaining why this is such a even battle. It does end up being very, if this was happening on comic pages, it would be very engaging, but just with when you're writing in prose, you have to be careful that the deeper you get into it, that you're still maintaining interest. So once you're doing multiple sudden turns, you have to make sure that the reader is still learning something throughout it. And you know, that's where you have things like the other ideas that you guys bring up, like even the curb stomp. You want to throw in all these different techniques to make that fight more interesting. But sudden turns they do have a good odd of catching people off guard and making them engaged. But there is a limit to how many sudden turns you can have in a fight, obviously, because otherwise people are just to be like, okay, this has been going on for 20 pages. I don't know who's going to win. It seems pretty even. This sucks. I just want to get to the end of the fight, right? So let's limit it. Let's say like 5 sudden turns in a fight would be reasonable. Up to your style. This is where the style of the writer becomes more important, because if a writer's good at writing fight scenes, they can justify more back and forth in the fight. So someone said subversion, and it is subversion. It's a series of subversions as well. But you know, it ultimately comes down to how you execute, whether or not it's a full-on subversion or just a natural progression of a fight. Oh, Black Fox. Curb Stomp is like, you have your main character, he's about to fight a villain, and all of a sudden, next page, it's just flat out, main character's on the floor. That's a Curb Stomp. You just got stopped. All of this guy's development, everything about him, just got stopped. And Skelly's saying subversion is what happens at the end of the fight. That's a very good point. So we have this next point. Force the reader to visualize. So this one actually requires your own mastery of the English language. Because to force the reader to visualize, you need to understand what makes good imagery. And this is something that you can actually learn. This is learnable. Conveying sudden turns and knowing how to use them, that's something you learn from experience. So you can't just read about that in a book. You need to like get into a fight. You need to write it. You need to like read it multiple times to see how the tempo is going. But when it comes to forcing someone to visualize, you can go read up a dictionary. You can pick up some new words. You can learn about what words are more violent than others. I shouldn't say learning, but you can do this. Forcing the reader to visualize is entirely dependent on your own ability to copy the way other people do it and your vocabulary. I got there with Deku versus Shigi. It was great, but it was like, okay, I get it. Finish it already. Yeah, pretty much, Matthew. Fight fatigue. Especially in written form, you do not want fight fatigue. Your fights should not last more than 2 pages, ideally. But the ramifications of your fights can last for a very long time. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let me just write the next thing. So, force the reader to visualize. If you're forcing the reader to visualize, things just become more interesting because now, like, the reader is interacting with your work. That's why you want to do it. Next. Right. This is actually pretty important because this is something that you will see in many pieces of advice. Modify modify sentence rhythm and word choice. So, what does it mean to modify sentence rhythm? It's very simple. A fight. Let me give you this advice. Sparring is beautiful. Fights are brutal. There we go. I lost my word there. I almost went Spanish. Word choice. So, a spar is beautiful. A fight is brutal. When you're in a fight, it's really up in your face. It's really fast. One wrong move, it's over. So what people will always tell you to do when you're writing fight scenes is to write really short sentences. Because when you write short sentences, it does trigger something in the reader's brain that makes everything feel a lot more hectic. It makes everything feel a lot more immediate. You want, like, all of a sudden things coming. You want to be able to convey the fear that a character has from the unknown. Because in a fight, everything is dangerous. You don't know if your opponent's about to punch you in the face or if he's about to punch you in the gut. That is very terrifying. You're looking all over the place. You're looking for an arm. You're looking for a leg. You're looking for his head because he might be headbutting you. It's a very dangerous situation. You want to convey, ideally, with these small sentences that don't give detail the fact that your character is also not taking in all these details. Especially if you're writing just human versus human fights, this is how you make very interesting fights. You modify sentence rhythm and word choice to make sure that the sentences are impactful and short and are purposely lacking in detail. Okay, so Animamus said not more than 2 pages. So Animamus, just to clarify, I said that like partly as a joke, but ideally you don't want your fights to take up too much time. Let me correct that. You don't want your fights to take up too much time if it's just pure fight choreography. If the character is doing power exposition, then the power exposition is actually not a, like once you go into the exposition part, it's not part of the fight, it's an explanation part. If your character is telling a story, that's a story, it's not necessarily just a fight. But in terms of just pure fight choreography, it should not go for longer than 2 pages unless you're making a really emotional work and unless you can keep the reader invested in it the whole time. The advice you're going to get from a lot of writers is to limit how long those fight scenes go. Now, for anime and manga, it might be a little bit different because for some of those people, they're aiming for a comic adaptation. But I can guarantee you, fight scenes in a good portion of the light novels do not last that long, unless they have a lot of melodrama in it as well. And this is why when you look at isekai adaptations, some fights just turn into beam spam. And then some other fights are just the anime pumping up what was otherwise a 3-line scene. So just keep that in mind. All right. So if you're trying to make the reader tired and exhausted of fights, you can make them last 4 to 5 pages. Yeah, you can. Now, for me, I will just admit it here too. Like, I'm pretty bad at keeping my fights under control. Like, I feel like my fights are really tiring. Like, I look back at my work and I'm thinking like, this is pretty long. This is a pretty long thing. This is fights back to back non-stop. This is a lot. I do try to like balance it out with characters revealing powers because power reveals are always they're exciting. But that's definitely a problem. Okay, so oh wow, we've actually covered quite a bit. We're pretty close to the end here, and then I can read your guys' comments. So let me make a new layer. And now we're gonna start going a little bit more freeform here, everyone, because now we're gonna be talking a little bit more about we're gonna get a little bit more into detail. So now you guys have a pretty good sense of the general stuff that you need to do when it comes to your fight scenes. Well, I would like to think you have a general sense. I've actually read a very good fight. Would love to see it animated, but I don't see that happening. Oh, which light novel go on? Like a character in the middle of war, they just want to go home. Yeah, pretty much. Actually, Skelly's bringing up a good point. If you make your reader tired, you can convey to your reader like, hey, the character's also really tired of this. But you have to be very careful of that because sometimes forcing readers into negative feelings might not be the best situation. Chivalry of a Failed Knight. Oh, Chivalry of a Failed Knight. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, let me just very quickly go here. Other things you can do with your fight scenes. Other things that lead to success. Other things that are good for fight scenes. So in this part, we'll talk about things that happen outside the fight scene just to very quickly give you an idea if you're going to be having fight scenes. Establish precedent. So before you get into a fight, it'd be cool if you established how you handle things. It'd be cool if you established how characters handle conflict. At this point, you want to like maybe establish mannerisms, you want to establish strategy. If you can establish it before the fight, it'd be really cool for the reader to be going into a fight and think, oh, from this person's personality, I know that this character is prone to approaching in this particular way. So that'll be pretty interesting to see how they deal with this particular character. Now, mind you, establish precedent, that's something that happens after you had multiple fight scenes because precedent needs to come from somewhere. And also, like, on the meta level, if people know how you write your fight scenes, they know not to skim it if you are writing valuable fight scenes. Other thing that you can do here is establish resources. So when I say resources, what that really means is the resources that are available to the character. What could be a resource? A resource could be hype. Like maybe one of the characters has a legend behind them. Maybe there's a lot of talk about how a character fights. Skills. What skills does a character know? This is very easy to do for isekais because isekai characters just love talking about how much skills they have. And hype, skills, tools. Maybe tools will be cool. Like if you know a character has 500 knives on his person, you're thinking, well, you know what? 500 is too much. 500 is too big. If the character has 6 knives on their person, you know that this character has 6 hidden knives that he could bring up against the other opponent, and that's going to be really cool because it's like, oh yeah, shit. Once the 6 knives are gone, this guy's going to be pretty in trouble. So what these things serve to do is that it establishes some kind of... It establishes a endpoint for the fight, or it establishes a point at which the fight's going to have a sudden turn. Because at that point, you have your reader, they're thinking about the things that you've told them before. They're thinking about how that's going to affect the future. And you're thinking like, the reader's thinking like, oh shit, I can't wait to see how this person who fights with 6 swords is going to do against the person who has a magnetism power, right? That's very exciting. It gets people wondering. That's something that shonen is able to do really well, or the battle shonen are able to do really well. So as we were talking about the power level speculators, there's so many people that love speculative battles, and speculative battles can only happen because people have a good sense of what a character is capable of. But now we've been talking about, the good things to do. And we have to really now talk about trappings of fighting, of writing a fighting scene. Okay, so let me just very quickly go here. I found a light novel that's starting a manga adaptation. It's called I Was Dismissed from the Hero's Party because they don't need my training skills. Okay. Nearly used entire calc. Okay. Let me just make sure. MC got kicked out. Okay. A little should foreshadow the character. I follow room. Okay, cool. All right, just had to read your guys' comments, and we will continue. So, trappings of fight scenes. Woo! All right, here's trappings. Let me just make sure. Right, fights that don't matter. Now, it does require a little bit of judgment to know when a fight doesn't matter, but I can give you a pretty good example. Let's pick an isekai. If a character is out there power leveling, I don't need to know that the character fought a bunch of chickens. I don't need to have detail for how a character fought a bunch of chickens, especially if he's not hurt afterward. And heck, if the character is learning like even one little detail, that's actually probably not even that great. If the character learns like, oh yeah, when I'm fighting chicken monsters, I should probably duck more. That's dumb. That's not... it's not enough to be an impactful change. Like, sure, it's nice trivia, put it in a side story somewhere, but that doesn't matter. The scale doesn't matter. The further you get in a book, I don't care. Don't tell me about how you fought the chicken. Don't tell me about how you turned around on the chicken. Don't tell me about how you dodged the chicken's air blast. Maybe if you are trying to, and again, this is where your judgment comes into play, because maybe if you are establishing the fauna of a world, if you're establishing what the monsters are like, if you're establishing dangerous things, like if you're establishing that the chickens have pack tactics, and you're establishing that this is going to be a prevalent theme for monsters in the future, already you can hear that that's more impactful than I learned to duck more often when I'm fighting chickens. Especially if this guy is not going to be fighting chickens in the future. I do not need to know about the freaking chickens. I don't need to know that the chickens are giving you like 500 experience and that you need 1,000 experience to level up. I don't need to know it. Also, if it's just a fight that's on the road, like this is like a D&D fight, you're in the middle of the road and all of a sudden a goblin shows up and you kill it, great. I didn't need to know that. I do not need to know about your choreography. I don't need to know about how you slashed it. You should have just told me, oh yeah, on the way we fought a bunch of goblins. That's all I need. Everyone's going to be okay with that. You're not wasting time. Please, please just do not spend time on fights that don't matter. If you're writing choreography for a fight that doesn't matter, you're wasting time. That's a bad move. Don't do it. So, fights that don't matter. This actually leads me into another thing, because some people don't understand what it is that makes something matter. Lit RPG. Now, you guys might not know it because we are all Japanese fans, but lit RPGs are essentially isekais with status menus. I was just reading Skelly's comment. Okay, so isekais with status menus. All right, so this is where things get a little bit hard, because you're gonna have some author who's gonna be out there. He's gonna be thinking, "Oh yeah, my character's fight with a bunch of hellhounds is worthwhile because he gets to level up one level later. So that's why I have him fighting for like 10 pages with hellhounds." And it's like, no. That's a waste of time. That's a waste of my time. If all you're getting is some make-believe numbers because you have a story that has levels and statistics and experience, that's still a fight that doesn't matter. Because what else do I get aside from the commonality of a fight in your story? So the problem here specifically, this is a very specific problem that happens with lit RPG, and in that extension, isekais with status menus. If every fight is going to give you experience, think about that. I, as a reader, know that's a fundamental fact. Every fight's going to give you experience to level you up. Why do I need to see that? Why do I need to see the detail of that fight when all that's changing is the experience? So what ends up happening here is that people might think, oh, it's going to be really cool to show off how this character fights against a hellhound. But here's the reality. I could read the first line here, and then I could read the final line, and I'd be like, oh, great, he killed the hellhounds and he got the experience. If there is not some kind of plot relevant detail in there, or some kind of character relevant detail in there, then am I rewarded for skimming the fight? Yes, I am. I saved time. I've lost nothing of value in that fight. If that fight didn't have some kind of morsel of information snuck in there, I've lost nothing. If you're doing a fight just because you want some excitement in here, that's where it gets bad. So now you guys are also bringing it up. So Master Gray is saying, so if the fight moves the plot forward, then it matters? Yes, essentially. Again, it comes down to judgment, but believe me, you will notice fights that don't matter in lit RPGs when they're badly done. You know, we're talking very carefully here because this requires nuance, because again, it requires judgment to be able to say that this matters and this doesn't. That's why I'm bringing lit RPGs up specifically, because I've had to read a bunch of bad ones recently, and it's just, you have so many chapters and your fight didn't matter. Like, especially if you know that the guy's out training. I know that these guys can't really beat you. I know that these guys aren't actually really that tough. Why did I waste time reading 3,000 words of a fight that ultimately just contributed to +5 experience out of 20, right? Think about how worthless that feels. Like, do you remember your fights when you're grinding just randomly? No, you really don't. That's why a fight that has the illusion of mattering because some numbers are going up, no, not really. Another way that you can make a fight that doesn't matter is if you say that the character struggled a little bit throughout it, but if he doesn't apply that lesson for the rest of the book, then the lesson loses value. So this is, again, the big issue. You got to be able to discern what's impactful and what's not, and that ultimately requires your judgment and experience. Gohan says there's a manga that the MC fought a hellhound, but it was to show that he wasn't up to the task of the dungeon yet. So Gohan, right there that's an important fight. That's power exposition. Without that fight, I don't fully understand without that fight, you wouldn't fully understand where exactly the character stands in his own power set. You wouldn't understand where the character stands in like the rest of the world. So that is, again, power exposition, which is worthwhile. If there are different mechanisms to be revealed with the battle system and menu, it's okay to show the fight, but I'm not here to see repetition. Yeah, Monch has a really good point. But again, you guys are already bringing up all the things that I'm also mentioning. You have to have other details. In this case, you're bringing up world exposition maybe because you're showing off the systems in the menu. Again, exposition is good. Repetition isn't that great. Oh, I put suggestions to manga on Discord. I might not have seen them just yet. Gohan. So just be careful. The reason that I'm writing this out so much is because this is a common criticism that people complain about on Reddit when it comes to lit RPGs, and there's other trappings that those have as well. But just keep that in mind. Any other things that you have? There's another trapping that happens, forgetting your genre. So, you know, we're getting into that realm where we're talking about nuances now. And the reason that forgetting your genre is bad. Oh, but yeah, which have you read lately with RPG elements? Oh, Gohan, no, man. Just go on Royal Road and just pick up anything. There's a bunch of lit RPGs on there. I've had to read them recently because I was considering like doing some stuff for that, and I had to review a few. But yeah, just go on Royal Road and you can find a bunch of Western lit RPGs, and you'll eventually find the bad ones. It won't take that long. But yeah, forgetting genre. So, this is an issue just because the genre dictates what's valuable in your fight. For instance, Saitama in One Punch Man beating up a sudden enemy with one attack. You know, that's in the context of an RPG, that might be normal. That might be normal for a character to beat up a mook with one attack, right? But Saitama is in a deconstruction. He's in a comedy. So if you are doing things for a comedic aim, it does kind of shift where exactly your fight lies. Since we're writing fantasy, however, fantasy does require your fights to not be as vapid as a comedy because, again, the end result of a comedic fight is you're going to get a laugh out of it. The end result of a fantasy fight is that you're getting progression in some kind of form. So that's one other trapping, is forgetting genre. This one is a little bit weak, honestly, but it's kind of critical. You always have to remember your genre. This just requires knowing, again, what your genre requires or what it expects for a fight. Okay, cool. Romance to battle novel, right? But yeah, which stories have... Okay, got it. Unless it's a joke like an overly cautious hero using a nuke spell. Yep. Right, so for that point, let me just reiterate it. Forgetting genre because you forget what it is that makes your fights valuable. And that does change. It modifies the things that we talked about before. Okay, so now at this point, I want to get into examples. And I want to break down for you guys just some cool little things. So we're going to be using Danmachi as an example because Danmachi is an edited work. Someone ultimately edited it to make sure that it was profitable. So we're going to look at Danmachi also because I didn't have time to read up on any other any other light novels. So let me just very quickly dig up my my battle lines that I wrote here because I have a few. So this extract that I'm going to give you is from halfway in the novel, so it's not at the climax. So this is actually really good because climactic battles tend to go longer. This is probably a good example of how an author managed their time. So we're going to use this one. Let me just make sure. I got to make sure I get the right copy. I think this will work. Yeah, I think I'll be able to get that copy. Okay, so let me see if I can paste this into my the LA Dodgers have won the World Series. Oh, nice. What would you call a character who gives one of the most dramatic Tautsu speeches that moves the villain's men, but the villain just looks at them and blasts that character in the face? Oh, that's just funny. In my opinion, some of the best fight scenes don't come from action, but it seems sorry, Ryan. In my opinion, some of the best fight scenes don't come from action-oriented properties because there it seems as extreme as it does in real life. Okay. Gotcha. So let me go here. I'm just going over and I'm gonna try and copy. Here we go. Please work. Oh, yeah, okay. That's good. That's good. Let me just... I might have to do it a little bit different. So let me just change up my... the font was... It was almost good. So switch that up. And then I'll put it here. So this is an extract from Danmachi. So I'll read it for you guys in case you can't see, because I think the words might be a little bit... I think we can actually make it a bit bigger. Oh, talk no jutsu. Yeah, no, that's a Black Fox. That would be a subversion if you think about it, because like the general idea is that's gonna help, but that's just subversion, deconstruction. That'd be funny, right? That'd be totally funny. All right, cool. That's much bigger. So let's read it. So the first little bit here, she went from level 3 to level 4. In other words, a level up, reaching a higher plane. This is just exposition, not really the fight. Let me just go here. So much faster than we fought, but I can't hide my surprise after hearing myself. Aisha looks my way for a moment before charging into another pack of monsters and tearing them to shreds. Okay, so that first line there is actually worth examining because ultimately what we're now going to talk about is choreography, right? So here, the author makes the choice, especially with that Aisha line. She looks my way for a moment before charging into another pack of monsters and tearing them to shreds. Right there. Okay, you're reading that. You understood exactly what's going on there. This woman is beating them up. You also just got told that she went to a higher plane of existence. So seeing this woman just treat these monsters like they're not worthy of extra choreography, that tells you, oh yeah, they are as worthless as you would expect them to be for a person who went to a higher plane of existence. So this is actually a really good move here. This is ideally what you do when a fight doesn't matter and when you want to convey a particular sense. And again, the sense in this particular instance comes from the way that the author disregards the monsters. And then you have the girl giving exposition. It's because I had to deal with some rough things. I shut myself up in the dungeon for a while to toughen up a bit. Okay, so that gives you power exposition. Immediately you understand, oh, that's how you got so strong. That's how you ascended to another plane of existence. We move on and we go into... Tiandre, it's actually totally okay to show this. It's just an extract. Let's just go through. Combining ground-shattering kicks with slashes of their greatsword, she smashes in the heads of monster... Combining ground-shattering kicks with slashes of her greatsword, she smashes in the heads of monster after monster. She flows through the battlefield like a lethal bladed turret that leaves gruesome fragments in its wake. So at this point, the author is just really driving it home that this woman is dangerous. He's giving a little bit of flair to how she handles things, throwing in ground-shattering kicks and slashes of her greatsword. So this actually helps the anime when it comes to if they have to expand choreography, because that gives more flavor to her fighting style. I understand immediately that this woman probably has strong legs, right? Now, the brutality of the monsters, I really did not need that particular bit of information because that sense was already kind of conveyed at the top. But this is fine, like little bits. Ideally, Master Gray. Once I clip the other video. But yeah. You want, so for this one, I already had the sense for what it is. It adds a little bit more pizzazz, but this is probably a line that you could have done without if you were really cutting down stuff. But the author actually wasn't spending that much time on combat in this particular volume. So it's okay. It's okay. It's only a few lines. It's not a big issue. Let's go through. The loose fabric of her revealing outfit shifts along with her hair as the Amazon's momentum guides her away from spurts of blood. Not a drop touches her during the dance of death. Okay, so here is where style gets involved and where genre starts getting involved, because this is Dan Machi. This is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? I do not need to know in a normal situation that her revealing outfit is shifting along with the way she moves, right? It gives you a certain image. It makes you think about the character. Dan Machi is sometimes a little bit not great with the description. Because it is a novel that's focused on pretty anime girls, though, it makes sense why this is happening. This, without a doubt, is style. This is the genre getting involved. This is one of the things that makes me roll my eyes a little bit in Dan Machi, because it's like, well, you're breaking up a really tense scene to make me think about how sexy the character is. And it's like, that's not me personally, but that is the author's personal style. And it's also actually might, depending on who is the one saying this, if it's Belle saying it, it just tells you Belle's still a pervert and he's watching this woman as she's doing those kind of things, which fits in with Belle's general description of how he describes the girls. So that one is a style line. We then move on. It's a swarm of rabbit monsters, Al Mirage. Welf engages the first wave, slicing down several with a swing of his greatsword. I'm slow to react beside him, and they launch a flood of nature weapons, stone tomahawks, right at me. So this is another line that someone is most likely going to skim. What they ultimately get from this particular line is world building. It gives you, what would be the word? Power exposition, because in this line you learn about what kind of weapons the little rabbits use. And also the Almiraj, that is, I think, the first time that this particular monster was brought up in a while, which was actually really important for later in the volume, because later in the volume the author's going to say, oh, that's an Almiraj, and it's going to make you want to think, oh, you're talking about that one little monster that maybe showed up in that one time. Mind you, it's not super memorable. For me, the most memorable thing is that they have nature weapons. So if you like monster exposition, this would be good for you. But this is probably a line that's going to be skimmed. Although the author did not waste too much time in choreography. They just told us, okay, Welf swung down his great sword, great. But here's an example of world building or power exposition if you're looking for it. We move on. I knock each of the incoming tomahawks away with the Hestia knife and the other knife. This disarmed all the Mirage given to... Wait. The disarmed Almiraj give in to their monster instincts and charge directly at us. The horns on their head leading the way. That's just telling us choreography. Weaving in and out of their attacks, I block one head on, knock it off balance, and line up the counter strike. Now I think we're about to go into a sudden turn. Yeah, random. It's because I didn't have time to go get another novel. But this one will work just fine. Okay, so weaving in and out attacks, I block one head on, knock it off balance, and line up the counter strike. My body slows down just before making contact. Bell! Mr. Bell! Something about seeing my reflection in its big eyes caused me to hesitate. In fact, I've come to a complete stop. Welf and Lily's yell ring in my ears as the Almiraj's red irises narrow. It jumps directly from my breastplate. So, what happened here... This is the interesting part of the whole fight scene. This is what the fight scene ultimately leads up to. This is why you have the Almiraj having choreography. You have a sudden turn occurring here. All of a sudden. And you also have characterization. Bell can't fight the Almiraj. He saw his reflection reflected in its big red eyes. And big red eyes, that choice of words is a choice of words that's usually denoted to innocence. Like you say, oh, a puppy's big pouty eyes or big puppy eyes, right? When you say big red eyes, it gives like a kind of sense of innocence. And the reflection, so you see a reflection, and reflection are usually used to remind someone of their humanity. So that's actually why this line works. It's a sudden turn. It tells us that Bell is encountering a stipulation of his humanity here, and it's telling us that there is a hesitation. This is very irregular for what DanMachi is at this point in time. At this point in time, DanMachi is always talking about killing monsters. But this is a really important novel because it's a novel about where Bell is coming face to face with that whole thing about whether or not monsters should be killed. So this is a very irregular line. It doesn't happen often, and that's why it gets a fight scene in the middle of this chapter. That's why this fight scene ultimately matters. So what did you ultimately learn for this fight scene? It wasn't the choreography that was all that interesting. The interesting parts were learning about why one particular person was much stronger than before, and the other interesting part was learning about the fact that the main character is going to be hesitating from now on. That's why this fight scene is important, even though the choreography itself may not be the most important thing in the world. So does that make sense? For you guys, did you see... Oh, let me remove that. Did you see what was going on here? This, no matter how you look at it, is a fight scene that has less choreography, but more character exposition, more power exposition, more sudden turns. Makes sense? This is the kind of stuff that ideally you want to produce. And also, you know, not the most exciting thing. There are still a few parts here that slow things down because of DanMachi's trappings. And again, DanMachi's particular trappings in this regard are the over-description of female characters. But, you know, you can't really do much. That is the genre. That is the market. It's a book titled, Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Makes sense that it would be having these problems. But in terms of resource allocation, it's probably a good example. All right, cool. I will wait to make sure that you guys have seen that and make sure that I have not somehow lost the stream. I don't think I have. And I would love to read what Skelly and Buddy and Ryan were talking about. Oh yeah, you know, you guys were just going through. I'm just going to read this real quick. Power is vague. Strength is usually considered muscle power, just how hard you can hit. Yeah, when it comes to the... so the fight that I'm seeing that Skelly... or not fight, the discussion that Ryan and Skelly were having is just where exactly you put the value of your strength, or how exactly do you quantify the factors that go into your fight scenes. I mean, that's an interesting discussion, but it changes depending on the genre as well. Okay, cool. To be fair, that's one I like that matchy, but there's a thing or two that bother me. What were the 3 things you said in the beginning that fight scene needs to be about? Ah, right, Black Fox. Let me see that. Let's dig it up. Okay, so writing fight scenes. With the fight scene, simple, most understandable conflict. You need excitement. So in terms of how to make a fight scene more worthwhile, we were talking about telling a story. We were talking about power exposition. We were talking about characterization. Other things that we had here. We were talking also about why are you writing a fight scene, and we were saying it's a staple of the genre. You need excitement. You need to convey an idea. An idea is the one that we ultimately focused on. Yeah, I think you might be maybe you're referring to these ones, Black Fox. Tell a story, power exposition, characterization. Also, a really short scene. That helps. Yep, it really does help. Oh, yeah, then in that case, you want to look at these notes here, Black Fox. So, I'm trying to think if I want to get into the conversation that Ryan and Skelly were having. Ultimately, the factors that are important for a fight scene are the factors that precedent has established are important for a fight scene. Like, for me, I love powers, right? Fundamentally, that is my thing. I will die on my hill. I don't care if the reviews tell me that this guy spends too long writing powers. Powers are where things are at for me. I love my powers. I'm going to spend my time on it. So for me, the most important thing, if I'm doing a world where characters have access to generic spells, then the amount of spells that someone has access to and their ability to apply them in a particular situation or apply them creatively, those might be aspects that my fights always hinge on. The idea, I want you guys to think about games. Games always have a meta that's developed for them. In a video game, you might have a meta where, oh yeah, it sucks to make a character that's speed-based because magic just works out much better for this particular universe. So when we're talking about that, think about it, because your fights are probably going to develop a meta. And that's going to happen most likely because of your writer's bias. The way that you solve problems eventually is, if you're writing for long enough in a particular power system, is going to establish a meta for you, whether you like it or not. And it's going to be up to you to, at one point, figure out what your meta is. For instance, in Bleach, the meta was characters suddenly teleport behind each other and slash each other, or characters talk about their powers and then get neutralized by a Bonkai. Bleach had a very established meta that made sense after a while. Now, in terms of resources, this is another general note. Oh, yeah, sure, X. Sobofuri. Yeah, you want to make sure, like, eventually you're going to have a meta foreman. I do want to say, this is a general note. One thing I like doing, and I think I'll do this for my stories going forward, and this is just because I am too detail oriented. I'm going to remove this right now, Black Fox. Let me know if you need this to come back up, and I'll bring it back up. One thing that I really would love to have with my stories as I go forward, there's nothing wrong with having a glossary of information for your story, where it just tells you like random things, but metrics personal. One thing I would love to have in my story is MP. And what I mean by MP, I would love, when I write a story, I try to think about how much MP does my character have left. I'm not sure if I'm going to ever tell my readers what the MP is, but for me, I might consider like developing an MP system. Develop the system privately. I might develop that. I think that is legitimately a problem for a lot of writers when you have characters always spamming, like, say, a jutsu in Naruto. I don't know the limits of these characters because you never establish a limit. I think having limits is really good, and we see it work really well with Izuku. We see it work relatively well with Kakashi. Kakashi is a character that is entirely defined by limits. Kishimoto wanted Kakashi to be a character that was defined by his potential, but no, He failed. He was a character defined by limits. I know Kakashi with a Sharingan cannot do once he activates that thing, it's pretty much game over. He's not going to be useful for a while afterward. And then Kishimoto just didn't handle that well at all, because when it could have mattered, he gave Kakashi ridiculous overpoweredness in terms of his chakra reserves. So I would develop a limit system. I would have it privately. I wouldn't bore my readers with the details. I'd put it at the back of the book or at the beginning of the book and have it there for the readers that actually care about that kind of thing. If a reader is going to the back of the book to learn about the MP costs for particular things, that is a wonderful reader. I respect you. You are my favorite. You are the one I'm writing for. But I won't bring that in to trudge the thing. It will ultimately be part of the behind the scenes stuff, but it won't trudge up the story. So I would keep track of MP. I would keep track of tools. This one is actually easier to squeeze into the story. Like if a character is an archer, you tell them, oh, I have 20 arrows today. And then when they get to a point where they're running out of arrows, that reader's like, oh, yeah, you told me that you had 20 arrows left. So that's why this is good to keep up with. And it's good to have your metrics written out somewhere. If you're going to be serious with your limits, it's good to have your metrics written out somewhere. But this is, of course, just a way to make limits. You can make limits in other methods, such as Izuku. Izuku will bust up his arms. But when limits get out of control, it becomes quickly very... Yeah, Master Grade. MP is limits for when I'm writing. But when limits get out of control, it just becomes stupid. And Black Fox, you're going to remember this, but Shokugeki no Soma has one of the worst examples of limits. Like, there was one time that you have some characters saying like, oh man, we're so tired. We're not going to be able to do anything. Oh no, I'm so exhausted. Oh no, I cooked too much. All right, cool, sure. They cooked so hard they had to take extra time to not come back to the competition. Sure. That gives our characters a way out. Sure. Why is it that afterward, when a character is taking on 10 people at the same time or taking on a really strong opponent one after the other, why is it that you have this character taking on an elite and this character is not like fully wiped out, even though this character is technically lesser than the two other characters that were totally wiped out in the previous arc? I hate limits when they are not consistent, and we all know that Shonen Jump does this. We all know that Shonen Jump just loves saying bye-bye to limits, because ultimately Shonen Jump does not care about metrics. They don't care about limits. It sucks. I wish they did this better. When a series is getting to the end as well, they will definitely stop caring about limits. Power logic out the window. Doesn't matter anymore, because we just need to get a cool looking ending. I absolutely hate it. It's going to be a problem that's going to happen with serial escalation. Wish it didn't happen, but oh well. What can we really do? Oh, Gohan, no man. I like Naruto, but Naruto has like a lot of critical failings. Naruto has a lot of critical failings with how they handled some things in their story. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that. Again, like Kakashi on paper, Kakashi makes sense, but in execution he was pretty bad. Might Guy is the significantly better example of how to actually do a character that's cool, because Might Guy, like the difference between Kakashi and Might Guy is Kakashi is, you get told Kakashi is a master of 1,000 jutsu. Shit, that sounds really impressive. Don't really see it. Might Guy, he's a joke for the majority of the series. You know that he's been teaching Lee some really weird stuff, and then at the end of the series you find out, oh shit, this guy actually knows what he's doing. Oh shit, he's actually the guy that's able to take on Madara. So right there in that dichotomy between Might Guy and Kakashi, you can actually see the issues with Kakashi's writing. And when Kishimoto had to save Kakashi's chakra limits at the war arc, it was ultimately because the limits that he had to impose on Kakashi don't make sense in practical combat. That's why you had to have Kakashi have more chakra thanks to the Nine-Tailed Fox's influence. Kakashi was really a bad character where his character design ultimately bashed him in the knees in the war arc. I'm currently watching a show where they realize limits aren't supposed to be broken. Like the My Hero Academia last books, he seems to be sticking to them pretty well. Yeah, Deku having his limbs broken very rarely loses the fight. He generally either ends the fight before then or keeps going regardless. Yeah, Ryan, I was trying to be careful because My Hero Academia, like, it depends on how you argue it. But for right now, like, Deku's limits have a very visceral sense to them because of how brutal it gets. That's why I felt okay. But like, thank you for bringing it up. My Hero Academia is not like it's better than some of the other shonens, but it's gonna have problems in the future when it comes to limits. Um, is a build up to a fight necessary for every fight, or just the final opponent in a particular fight? Um, no, build up isn't necessary for every fight. No, not at all. Because a fight that, for instance, say you have a fight that all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, but your character ends up being crippled after it. Obviously, the fact that your character has a broken arm is going to be very important for any future conflict, right? So that's a very unfortunate way of making a fight that could have just been nothing, but now is actually very critical. There's other ways to build up a fight without letting your readers know about it, though, Edens. You can build up a fight through themes. Like maybe at the beginning of the novel, you have characters talking about, like, hey, main character, stop being so arrogant. Why are you always so arrogant? It's going to lend to problems in the future. So you're not really building up a fight. You're building up a problem, right? And this is just reminds you, fights are conflicts at the end of the day. So you're building up a problem. The character has shades that he's becoming arrogant. And then one day, bandits just show up on the road. And the character is arrogant because he's thinking, oh, they're bandits. Oh, shit. One of them actually has a nerve paralyzing agent. You've lost use of your arm. And you lost use of your arm because you thought, oh, shoot, I could just afford to take that hit because it's probably not going to matter because it's just a stupid bandit. Right there, you have technically a build-up for a fight, but it's not an aggressive build-up for a fight. An aggressive build-up for a fight would be a character being like brooding, like, oh yeah, this person, he's the guy that, you know, killed my family. I really hate him. I have revenge. I want to take my revenge for him. I'm going to kill this man. That would be an aggressive build-up for a fight. You know, it's you're being told exactly what's going to happen when this thing happens in the future. It's being very telegraphed. It's a goal. If it's the main character saying that, that's definitely a goal. It's going to happen at some point. Oh, Big Smoke. Excuse me, I just tuned in, not completely up to speed. Stop being so arrogant. You're building up a problem, and I need you to catch me up. Oh, Bandit. Yeah, Big Smoke. I was talking about. I was answering a commenter saying, is build up to a fight necessary, or just the opponent in a particular, or the final opponent in a particular arc? And I was giving an example where you don't necessarily need to build up a fight, but you can still make a fight worthwhile. So that was the calmest, cutest aggression for a fight. Yeah. But yeah, going back to Eden's build up. What matters in the fight, it not necessarily the build up. It's nice to have variety in your fight, so you would have build up. Oh, no worries, Big Smoke. I get it. But going back to it, it's nice to have variety. It's nice to have some fights that have build up, but it's okay to have a fight that just has an important, impactful conclusion. If you are going for a final opponent in a particular arc, it depends. Usually they will have build up. But yeah, if you have a fight in the midway point of a novel, it's okay for it to have build up too. And it depends. If you have a mini boss in your novel, then the build up is worthwhile. You kind of have to juggle that though. I think maybe if you have a midway point fight, it really depends on where in a novel you are. Midway point fights typically won't have build up, but again, I can't give you advice either way because this one depends on your own personal judgment, Edens. For instance, in your first novel, midway point fights probably don't have build up. In your 8th novel, midway point fights probably do have build up. Again, judgment is what changes it here. Okay, so we're getting to the end here, so you guys can also like start giving me those questions in case you have anything you want answered. One that pissed me off at the limit was the end of the end battle of the Hitman Reborn manga. Yeah, that was pretty rough. Given how strong Deku is he going to be 7 strength in the next book? Oh, I don't know. This fight makes me think maybe new power ceiling. The problem with the Hero Academia fights right now, Matthew, is that the problem with these fights right now is it's fights between people with multiple quirks, right? At some point, the people with one quirk just aren't going to be able to keep up with Izuku because Izuku's very quickly receiving new utility. The only people that can keep up with Izuku beyond a certain point are the Nomus, right? And this is a problem that I saw from when he got these other quirks. It was always going to be an issue of how many things Izuku can now afford to do. Okay, so other things to talk about here. So let's just very quickly, I want to give you guys some more writing examples of just, good bits of dialogue. Oh, and can someone, I'm going to just very quickly go here. Skelly or Prower, if you're here, can you guys just deal with these last little bits of comments from Big Smoke? Thanks. Anyway, let's see. Develop system. Right, I'm going to give you guys some lines. We're just going to very quickly go through line construction. So we're going to be touching on some of the things that we brought up earlier. We're going to be touching on the in details that work. So we're going to be touching on... So I'm just trying to find my notes here. We're going to be touching on how to make the choreography interesting. Oh, force the reader to visualize. We're going to be touching on those kind of things. Thanks, Skelly. So, let's start off. Hopefully the rest aren't combat viable. Maybe better for rescue and evacuation. Yeah. Alright. So, let's say you're writing a fight scene. You got a fight scene that's happening. How are you going to go about writing the choreography? Now, this is where it's going to require you reading how other people do it. It's going to require you having your vocabulary. But let's start with a really bad one. We'll be like, Skelly punched Prower with his right hand. Skelly punched Prower. His right hand. His right fist. Clenched. His right fist, yeah. Clenched. I like that. Clenched. His right fist. Clenched. He then followed with another. He then followed with a left punch. He then followed up with his left fist. Prower ducked. It was awesome. Oh, oops. With his left fist. Prower ducked. Prower ducked. And rolled away. Yeah, okay. I just found out there's a spin-off manga. Oh, that's cool. Oh, hey, Hunter. I'm glad you're enjoying this. Alright, so Skelly punched Prower, his right fist clenched, and he then followed up with his left fist. Prower ducked and rolled away. So that's pretty simple choreography. What you get there is just you just see, like, it's a little bit of a fight. Now let's say Skelly followed up and he just kept punching Prower over and over as Prower was standing back up. That might be interesting to write about, but the choreography at some point is going to be pretty boring unless there's going to be a sudden turn from Prower suddenly pulling a judo throw on Skelly. Writing like this for a continuous period of time, not the best. You can already see that this is going to have some problems if you are keeping this level continuously. Now, there is value to these kind of lines. These kind of lines are valuable when... Oh, yeah, DeAndre. Wonderful. These kind of lines are valuable when you need filler in your fight scene. Like, say you just need to... Maybe there was some other things in between this that we're talking about, some personal story or some personal power exposition. Maybe that was going on in between, and you just needed this to tell readers that there was more things going on in the fight. The Dan Machi example gave us an example of this with just the very quick filler of Welf bringing down a greatsword. So interestingly and ironically, the choreography actually ends up helping you a little bit more when you need it to just give the sense of time progression. Mind you, there is this line does end up having some energy behind it, especially because things like Prower ducked and rolled away. That's a very fast line. I think that was pretty okay. I wanted to make it a little bit shittier, but the shittiness for these type of lines, it increases by how long the line goes on. So keep that in mind. It still has its place, but again, personal style and judgment. That's what ultimately is going to save you in the majority of these cases. Let's keep going. Let's see what else we can come up with here. Okay, so that's one example. Just trying to get my control over. Alright, that's one example. Let's move on to another example. I want to really talk about forcing forcing a person to visualize, because that's really interesting. I love holding my readers captive. So let me load up this example I have in my mind here. So Gray's fist struck out. Or wait, no. Gray's fist extended. Yeah, that Gray's fist extended. Skelly had not moved. It all happened too fast. Oh, no. That's a bad one. It all happened too quickly. Well, we'll do quickly. It all happened too quickly. Let me think. Had not moved. It all happened too quickly. What else do I want to write there? I want to convey a particular sense for Gray. I got it. Okay, so Gray's fist extended. Skelly had not moved. It all happened too quickly. Moments before impact. And I don't like using moments because that kind of throws off the whole thing. Moments before collision. Moments before collision. Moments before collision. A jerk. Wait, yeah, a jerk of hesitation. A jerk of hesitation. A jerk of hesitation. Let's see. Let me pick out my word choice. A jerk of hesitation. Oh, a jerk. There we go. A jerk. Hesitation. A moment. A shred of hesitation. A shred of hesitation filled Gray's fist. But it was too late. But it was too late. A jerk in the fist, maybe? A jerk in the arm? A jerk in the arm. There we go. A jerk in the arm. A shred of hesitation filled Gray's. So guys, also you might notice that I'm like going back and rewriting. This is kind of how it goes, but it was too late. The massive muscle had connected. The massive muscle and bone. Oh yeah. Muscle and bone had connected. I like that one. Had connected. Had connected with a resounding pop. Now that's kind of scary. A resounding pop. Skelly's brain ricocheted within his skull. Okay, so. Oh! Skelly wants to put rattled. So Skelly's brain. Oh, okay, you know what? Resounding pop? We can go with a resounding rattle. Actually, I like that there. Skelly's brain ricocheted within his skull. The rattle could be heard. The rattle could be heard by angels above. We can refine this a little bit, but what I wanted to convey here is that this is a pretty descriptive line. I'm not sure if I did it properly. I think I might have to like just redo this a little bit. But for the purposes here, I can tell you what I intended to convey. I should have written it when I had the idea yesterday. Okay, so Gray's fist extended outwards. Skelly had not moved. It all happened too quickly. Moments before collision, a jerk in the arm. A shred of hesitation filled Gray's fist, but it was too late. The massive muscle and bone had connected with a resounding pop. So I probably put had connected with with Skelly's cheek with a resounding pop. Skelly's brain ricocheted within his skull. The rattle could be heard by the angels above. So I tried to use a little bit of exaggeration here because I like exaggeration. My big part here that I was really interested in was the idea of Skelly's brain ricocheting. So this is the idea, like, you know, you hear that Skelly's brain ricocheted. That's a very strong word. When I hear that word, I'm imagining like a forceful brain bouncing around in the skull, maybe even snapping at the point that hooks the brain down to the spinal column. That's kind of what I wanted to convey. So my question is, you know, whether or not So now, in terms of whether or not I would revise this, I would look to you guys and I would ask, well, did you guys get a visceral sense here? Like, I would ask, did the jerk in the arm, did that feel very strong to you guys? Did the shred of hesitation, did that make sense to you guys? Did the massive muscle and bone, did you see, can you imagine that? When I say muscle and bone, does that force an image in your mind? Does that make you kind of like squeam away? That would be the kind of stuff that I would be aiming for. I'd be aiming to get a visceral reaction from you. Now, again, I don't think this is the best line. I think I could have done a little bit better here. But in terms of forcing an image, did it work with any of you? That would be the first thing I figure out. My story choreography is insane. Like, I got my character changing into their symbiote transformation with the host and control. Okay. One, is it an issue when you're writing a draft form to writing in script? Black watched the battle unfold, decided to put his blade in the sheath and walk away. Adapting things is always going to be an issue, right? Black Fox, there's always going to be an issue. That's where it's going to require your judgment. Because, like, even in me writing something that I want to adapt into comic form, already I'm sacrificing quick writing. My writing is going to become extremely slower because I want to get certain things made clear to the artist if I don't have time to oversee it. So adapting, right? It's ultimately you have to adapt whatever you're writing to whatever medium you want to make or want to convert to, and you have to keep those considerations in mind. I like what you wrote there, though. Oh, perhaps inches instead of moments. Inches before. Oh, yeah, no, I like that more. I like that more, Ryan. Inches before collision. That's much better. That is much better because inches is also a shorter word. Moments takes too long to say. Moments, I like using it more for when it's like the beginning of a fight. But once you're in the actual part of a fight, moments. Now, the thing with moments is, like, moments is such a general word that the reader might be able to build the choreography in themselves, but inches changes that exceedingly, right? So let's talk more about this line, what I wanted to do with the line. This line is actually giving characterization to Gray. So from this line, you can tell that Gray actually did not want to hit Skelly because there's a shred of hesitation, and that was marked by the jerk, right? Also, you could tell if, like, Skelly hadn't moved, and you can say it all happened too quickly. So you could say that if Gray had hesitation, maybe Gray was thinking that Skelly was actually going to move. Maybe in this case, Gray had not taken into account that Skelly was his friend and totally thinking that he was not going to get sucker punched. So here you have a horrible tragedy. The tragedy is definitely prominent in the shred of hesitation because the fist connects. Now, mind you, I think it's ultimately too wordy. I do think that my editor would say to cut it down a bit, but I think the Skelly's brain ricocheting, I think that's a good one. I really like it. I think I could probably argue for it, but if the editor says that it doesn't make sense, then I'd have to swallow my pride and say, okay, I'm stupid. Probably should make that better. Honest Carnage, could hear his skull cracking. This is how you do essays of X words during school. I can see a bunch of people enjoying this. It's good. Okay. This was super effective. I imagine one of those Mortal Kombat where you see the X-ray and the bones cracking. Oh, that's good. God dipped. Okay, gotcha, Tiandra. Which parts of the fight would you focus on if your editor told you to cut it down? Most likely, it depends on what my editor told me to cut it down. If the editor tells me to cut down the character introspection, it's going to have to go. I'm going to have to describe things in more. I'm going to have to describe things in more short words. It's pretty much going to be removing any little bit of flowery language. For this one is flowery. It depends on what was surrounding it. If there was just a lot of character exposition before this having fight scenes of this level continuously is going to be too much. But if it's only once in a while to really convey a scene, I think this will be fine. I think the Skelly brain ricochet, though, I think that idea stays in here no matter what. But yeah, it depends on what the editor thinks ruins the pacing of the book. You might realize that a lot of pacing in a book requires you saying the lines in a particular way. If you change the way that the lines are being enunciated, then immediately it'll change the rhythm, and that will cause a problem. And since everyone reads with a different rhythm, this is why ultimately you need a second opinion to make sure that what you are conveying in terms of the rhythm actually makes sense to another reader. Many times I've had to go back and change the rhythm of a line because I read it 5 days later when I didn't have the first rhythm in my mindset. So this is a one thing here. I think it's not the best line. I think it'd be all right. This one probably requires more things happening in the background to really make it stick. But give me 2 paragraphs on either side. I can make that line work. I think it'd be okay. Speaking of fight scenes, that recent chapter. Oh yeah, that was good. Let's do one more. I got another example here. Let's say Prower's windpipe. Prower was lifted from the ground. Prower was lifted from the ground. His windpipe on the verge of being crushed. Verge of being crushed like an old juice box by the Cyclops's Cyclops's bulging yellow hand. Bulging yellow hand. I imagine this close to the end of a fight. Yeah, Ryan. That's how you gotta think about it. Thank you, Ryan. That is a good way to think about it. So Prower. Oh, got a little bit of a mistake here. Let's go here. Prower was lifted from the ground. His windpipe on the verge of being crushed like an old jukebox by the Cyclops' bulging yellow hand. Prower gritted his teeth. Prower gritted his teeth. He raised with all the strength that he could muster. With all the strength he could muster. He could muster. He swung out his foot. He swung out his foot. He swung. Oh. He swung out his foot. He swung out his foot. An edge. A bladed edge. A bladed edge. Glinted? Glinted, I think is the word. Glinted. Forgive me if I mess up one of my words. Glinted in the low light of the room. It was a blade. It was a blade hidden in his boot. His boot. It disappeared. It was a blade. Oh, man. It was a blade hidden in his boot. His boot. It disappeared. It disappeared into the Cyclops' side. With a smooth, slippery slink. Oh, gotta watch out for that. With a smooth, slippery slink. And I like the alliteration. I always try to go for alliteration when possible. Alright, so this is a different kind of line. So this line actually is a little bit more useful. There's still 1 or 2 parts here that might be a little bit too wordy. But if this was the first line that you encountered in a book, I think it'd be fine. This is an establishing shot. So Prower was lifted from the ground, his windpipe on the verge of being crushed like an old juice box. Now, this thing here with the old juice box, I would typically not have it. I think it gives a powerful image, but it's also a little bit more jokey. Like if this was more close to a comedy, so if this is like a jester kind of telling the story, this is where I would use this kind of imagery. Otherwise, I might go with something more visceral. But I think this conveys a pretty good sense of what exactly is going on to Prower's windpipe. But yeah, his windpipe on the verge of being crushed like an old juice box by the Cyclops' bulging yellow hand. Prower gritted his teeth. With all the strength he could muster, he swung out his foot. A bladed edge glinted in the low light of the room. It was a blade hidden in his boot that had now come out. It disappeared into Cyclops' side with a smooth, slippery slink. So alliteration, I think, helps there. So what's going on in this scene? Oh, Ryan, that's a great question. I'm going to answer that in a second. So in this scene, you get a sense of what's going on. You have a sequence of events occurring. You were told that Prower was just lifted from the ground. You know that his windpipe is on the verge of being crushed. You know that a Cyclops has a bulging hand, so you could probably imagine Prower is being held up by that bulging hand. And then you learn something about Prower. He has a blade in his boot. Like, okay, why does Prower have a blade in his boot? Well, that immediately tells you stuff about Prower in general, right? It tells you Prower is super prepared. He's prepared enough to have a blade in his boot, and he's good enough to be able to sink it into something's side. So that's pretty cool. Prower is a pretty cool guy. I'm immediately interested in why he has a hidden blade within his boot. And then, like, the last bit, it disappeared into the Cyclops' eye with a smooth, slippery slink. That's just to make the reader, like, really, like, feel it. Alliteration helps a lot. And the slink as well, if you put it in italics, it's like you can kind of hear the sound. That's kind of what we're kind of aiming for here. But I think this is a good enough scene to open up with, and I think you could build off from this really well. So, Ryan, it depends on who your narrator is. You shouldn't be comparing things to juice boxes if the narrator is someone from that world. If it's an isekai protagonist, you can have it. If it's a third-person omnipresent narrator, I'd be very careful because that might break the immersion. Like, why does the god of that world or the narrator know what a juice box is? I know. It's really tough. When you're writing within a fantasy, if you're writing a straight fantasy, I don't think anyone's going to tell you that you put a juice box into that because that's going to ruin the high fantasy aesthetic. So you got to be really careful. Those kind of descriptions, I only put it in when my main character is a joker or is funny or is hysterical. And for my debut novel, he is. That's why he has very funny descriptions. So fight scenes that add new information to the story. Fine. Yep. Remember, Gray. Yeah, you were here the whole times. Yeah. Master Gray, remember, your fight scenes need to add something. They need to have an impact. As long as they have a significant impact and they're telling you something, they're a worthwhile fight scene, right? It has to be information that is not the typical information that you would expect from a fight scene. At the end of the day, maybe another way to think about it is if your reader skims it, so essentially skips over the material, are they going to be in a disadvantage going forward into the story? If the answer is yes, it's most likely an important fight scene because it's going to tell you something fundamental that you can't get anywhere else, and it builds an understanding. That might be the better way to approach it if you have a hard time figuring out where your fight scenes are valuable. If the reader would regret skimming it, or if the reader would miss out on something that's critical for later, it's an essential fight scene. Now, for this situation, so let's look at this Prower line again. The Prower line, what it ultimately does for us, it tells us that Prower is in a dangerous situation. He's being held up by a Cyclops. It tells us what exactly is going on with Prower right now. So this isn't all that different from just saying, oh, Prower was here. He was talking to the Cyclops. They were talking about something that could potentially end in him dying, right? That's not all that different, right? The end result is still Prower is probably going to be in problems here. And then here, of course, we do have the extra value of knowing that Prower is actually crazy prepared. That's a character trait. I would love to know why it is that he has a boot in there. So that's how you gotta think about how valuable your fight scenes are. I would say this is a valuable fight scene because it tells the reader about Prower, and that's characterization. So in case we were wondering, like just from the early parts of the chat, characterization is a worthwhile thing to have in your fights. Let's just do one last one, and then we'll take questions, and we'll call it a day there. So one last one. Skelly was furious. This isn't okay. I'm only putting that one in there. Master Gray, you're asking a really good question. But let me just go through this last one real quick. Skelly was furious. He swung out at, let's see, who do we pick on? He swung out at Ryan. His fist aimed directly for his nose. I'm trying to make this one funny. Give me a second. I want to make this one funny. And I'm sorry if I mischaracterize you guys. I'm gonna mischaracterize you. Luck has no place in a battle, Skelly shouted. No. Skelly screeched. You want to use screech because it's a more powerful word. Skelly screeched. Ryan tried to duck. Ryan tried to block. Actually, no. Let's go. Ryan tried to duck. Ryan tried to duck. But Skelly saw. He changed his fist to an open palm. This is gonna be good. Open palm. And immediately struck down on Ryan's head. Actually, yeah, and struck down on Ryan's head. Taking grip. Any advice for word choice in your story? Yeah, no, word choice is really important. Wait, struck down on Ryan's head, taking grip, taking hold of his hair. He yanked him up so that he could see him, and he yanked Ryan by the hair. Ryan by the hair so that they could see each other eye to eye. Bam. Put a little bit of a little italics on it. Bam. Skelly ran his skull into Ryan's. Skelly ran his skull into Ryan's. Ryan wanted to fall, but he was denied. I like using denied a lot in my work, but he was denied. Skelly pulled him back up again. But he was denied. Skelly pulled him back up again. And drove a fist into his mouth. Drove a fist into his teeth. Drove a fist into his teeth. Drove a fist into his teeth. And again, forgive any misspells. Drove a fist into his teeth. They clattered. Chattered? They chattered and cracked. Blood splurted out. Blood squeezed out from pressed lips. Okay, so I can't go any further than that. Oh, there's 2 in the chat? Oh, well, it could just be General Ryan. So this one, what I want to do in this one, and again, always requires refinement. What I'm trying to do is to really show that Skelly is furious, right? So he swings out at Ryan. He's aiming for the nose. That tells you where he's going. Skelly is having a thing about luck. Ryan tries to duck, but Skelly is like really effective on this one. So open palm, he strikes down on Ryan's hair, and he takes hold of his hair. So this is what I actually like doing in fights, is I try to do kind of unusual choreography. Like if someone's taking the time to really grab you by the hair and yank you back up so you can look at them in eye level, they are really upset at you. And then unconventional things like Skelly headbutting Ryan, that's also worthwhile. And then the idea that that Ryan wants to fall, but Skelly is stopping it. Now, here, I think I shouldn't be saying Skelly pulled him back up again. I think I should be saying Ryan wanted to fall, but he was denied. Skelly's clenched hand yanked him into the air, or Skelly's grasp yanked him into the air, and drove a fist into his teeth. I think that's okay. They chattered and cracked. Blood slipped from in between, or blood squeezed out from. Blood slipped. I think slipped is better. Blood slipped from pressed lips, from between pressed lips. That would be good. So again, it's always a process. You always have to go through it. For this one, I want to convey the brutality of it. And when you want to convey brutality, you have to use more. You have to use more things. Now, this one, immediately there's not really any purpose other than to say Skelly is furious. So I think for these kind of situations, when you really want to convey that that your character is feeling a particular way, I do think using flowery language is worthwhile, because it's not going to happen often, right? This is a spectacle in of itself. This is like more detailed than usual. This shouldn't be happening all the time. I think this would be all right. Now let's go back into your guys' questions. So fight scenes to add new okay, what if you had a scene earlier where Prower was talking about having a hidden blade? Would this scene still work? Master Gray, that becomes a little bit more interesting, because for my Prower scene, I imagine this more as a situation at the beginning of a novel, just to establish things, like a short story. This is where Prower starts, because already it tells you that Prower is, he's thinking under pressure, right? If we were told that Prower has a hidden blade, it changes things significantly. The part that it would change a lot is this one right here. I don't need to actually explain the part that goes through Prower having a blade. I don't need to explain how the blade looks. I mean, if you could do it if you want to, at that point you're being flowery. But the advantage of saying that the blade edge glinted in the low light of the room, it tells you about the setting, and it also tells you about what kind of material you have on the blade. You don't need to regurgitate that information just to make it seem cool. This has more, like, this should be as surprising as it is for the enemy that's about to be stabbed. So the reader should be having the same kind of surprise that the Cyclops would be having. So definitely, if we already knew about this, I'd remove that line. I just say Prower swung out. He lodged his hidden blade into the Cyclops' side with a smooth, slippery slink. So that's definitely something that would be removed, I think. Any advice for word choice in the stories? It's a process. You always have to be looking through it. You have to kind of like read it out loud. You have to see if you like it. You have to like ask yourself, why are you writing the fight scene? Are you writing it because you want to be visually amazing? Are you writing it to convey a sense to your readers? Are you writing it to give characterization? This in of itself is pretty useless outside of the fact that it's telling us in what way Skelly is expressing his anger, right? This is an entirely exposition of how brutal Skelly would be in a fight. And beyond that, you know, not very useful. Like, one thing you do know is that Ryan's going to come out of this horrifically maimed. If this was in comic form, the brutality would be on another level, because again, the brutality of holding someone by their hair and stopping them from falling, that's merciless, right? In comic form, that would be great. You would probably be writing like this specifically if you wanted to translate this into a comic form, because this is very visually accurate, or this is very visual in its presentation. Do fight scenes need setup and payoff? This is a variation of what Eden's asked earlier. It depends on the fight scene. Ideally, I'd like fight scenes to have a theme. They should have a build up in theme, ideally, but it depends. As I said to Eden's earlier, you know, if you have a situation like where a character was established to be getting overconfident, then you have a fight that shows a penalty for being overconfident. The fight could have come from anywhere. What matters is not how the fight came up. It's what it imparts on the fighter, or the main character, or the character that's involved in the fight. So in that particular case, when it comes to saying that a character has overconfidence issues, and then him being beaten by overconfidence in a non-important fight with mooks or anything like that, it pays off on the build-up that was built thematically, right? So that's one way of building up without letting people know. But again, the fights don't necessarily need to be built up. They just need to have impact on the character. And as I said to Eden's earlier, a fight in the middle of the first volume is very unlikely to have build up, but it's very likely to be important for characterization and world building. A fight that happens in volume 8 in the middle of the novel is more likely to have build up, because you have 8 volumes to build it up, right? If he is not known for getting angry, this adds to his character. Matthew, you're very correct. If this is the first expression of Skelly's anger, This is actually very worthwhile, right? Like, imagine if you're reading a manga, because this is where it's really going to get involved here. If you're reading a manga and Skelly's been happy-go-lucky for the majority of this entire thing, and all of a sudden he gets angry at Ryan for no reason, anyone that sees how this scene is played out in the drawing, like at the end of the day, they're going to be like, shit, we better be careful with Skelly, because Skelly has anger issues. Why would he grab... Ryan was just trying to get away. Why would he grab hold of him by the hair and make him look at him in the eye? That's so aggressive. Like, why would you do that? That it's a little extra details, right? That would be a bit of a visual spectacle. And that would actually also be a little bit of subversion if you don't do this very often. If you don't do this level of detailing very often, that would be a little bit of a subversion on your own personal style, which will be kind of interesting for a reader. They'd be like, shit, that was intense. Holy crap. I feel like when you have furious fighters, you want to match the rhythm to the fight that you're writing and why you're writing the fight. If you have furious fighters, you should be making things more brutal. Like, imagine Skelly was furious. He tried to punch... Let me try and make this as bad as possible. Skelly was furious. He tried to punch Ryan, but Ryan tried to duck. Skelly screeched, "Luck has no place in a battle." After Ryan had ducked, Skelly saw and quickly changed his hand so that he could grab Ryan by the hair. He did. He managed to grab Ryan by the hair. He managed to pull him up. Skelly managed to look into Ryan's eyes and then punched him one more time. Ryan was going to fall back, but Skelly didn't want him to fall back, so he stopped him and pulled him back up so he could drive another punch into his mouth. You can make that really uninteresting. Use passive voice. Use flowery language. Don't describe how the teeth are clattering or the blood is coming out. Don't describe any of that. You can make a very boring fight very quickly. I mean, I'm going to skim that. There's no reason for me to read that. I want the visual spectacle at the very least. Ryan asks, is there ever a time you'd see setup during the fight itself, like tensions rising during a spar becoming to a full-on brawl? Yes. There's a very easy way of doing that, Ryan. The easy way of doing that would be... I'm going to use the Skelly example, but Ryan, just take the style of it. Don't take the overall conclusion, but this is how the style would work. So it would be right after luck has no place in a battle. That's what Skelly said. Let me see. So Ryan tried to duck. Let me see if I can do it. Oh, I don't got... I need to use italics here. There we go. Please no Skelly. So Ryan, you're gonna be the hero in this situation. But Skelly saw, he changed his fist to an open palm and struck down on Ryan's head, taking hold of his hair. Let's see. No, please. We agree. Okay, and then your line's cut off. He yanked Ryan by the hair so that they could see each other eye to eye. Bam! Skelly ran his skull into Ryan's. Yeah, Ryan wanted to fall, but he was denied. Ryan wanted to fall. This is where we do it. Ryan wanted to fall. We'll do something real quick here. We say, I can't. Maybe we want to show that Ryan's losing his cognitive ability, so I can't. But he was denied. Skelly pulled him back up again. We'll just say, please no more. We'll put that in italics so that people know that this is the thought process. Alright, so what I tried to do here, I tried to make that fight a little bit more interesting because now you have a better look at Ryan's mentality in this particular situation. So you have, please no Skelly, we were friends, but Skelly saw. No, please, we agree. And then, the idea that Ryan's thought process was disrupted by the yanking of the hair. This is building up tension. Tension is being built up here because already we have Ryan not wanting to be in this fight, but he keeps getting denied. Not only is he getting denied by the physicality of the situation, even his thoughts are being interrupted. So Skelly ran his skull. Ryan wanted to fall. I can't, but he was denied. So that was... this is a little bit of a stylistic thing, this line right here. I do this line because I like breaking up narration and a character's thoughts. That's a style thing. You can pick it up or not pick it up depending on what you want, but he was denied. I think I am missing something there for the grammar. Skelly pulled him back up again. Please no more. I think that's a much more interesting little fight going on there. So going back into Ryan here. Like tensions rising during a spar, becoming a full-on brawl. That's how you would do it. I would say you would add in the character's thought process, so it could still work because you're telling a story of how a fight got worse. That's what you would be doing in that particular situation, Ryan. You'd be giving more character to that fight. So you could be like, okay, they started sparring, but then one of Ryan's fists hit Skelly a little bit harder than usual. Skelly noticed, and he struck back a little bit harder. Ryan kept punching every fist, gradually building up in strength. The images of his father, or sorry, let's see, the images of a schoolyard bully, Skelly's brother, keep coming back into mind. Skelly retaliated. What started as a simple brawl turned into a show of retribution. So that's pretty interesting. We're talking about a really cool little thing going on there. Already there's a lot more build-up happening. So I would say definitely in that situation, tensions got worse. And by the end of it, I'm expecting to see some bloody noses from what was a simple spar. But that would be the technique of going about it. There's different ways of doing it. You could do it full narration. I personally like doing characters thinking in between their moves because I think that's cool. This would be hell to try and translate into a manga, but for literature, I think it works really well. Okay. Hey, Timothy. So seeing how fast Deku went from talking sweat to Eri, then almost murderous intent to overhaul when he saw injuries, knowing how positive character he is and forgiving shows even he has a limit. Yeah. You do want, like, you know, that jarring, the jarring dichotomy of Deku's emotional state. Contrast is always worthwhile because contrast is understandable. Contrast makes a big impact on a reader's mind. Subversion also does the same thing because they're such usually distinct polar opposites. All right, guys. So that's the majority on the talk on writing fight scenes. I hope that this was worthwhile for you guys in some particular way. Please let me know that at least some of you got some cool ideas from this. By the way, did you watch one of the 3 recommendations we suggested weeks ago? I watched more things, Tim. Which ones were the recommendations? Because I watched more things, but I don't know if I got to the ones that you guys recommended. I watched Akudama Drive. I'm not sure if anyone recommended that. But yeah, guys, let me know if this was valuable. Because Master Gray, you had a lot of questions here too. So I want to know that you got something out of this. Oh, hey, young man 5K. Skelly, I want to make sure that you also got something valuable out of this. At the very least, we were exchanging. One of them was Welcome to Demon School. No, I haven't gotten to Iruma just yet, Tim. Because I know Skelly was writing action. He was writing some action short story or something like that. I do think the rules kind of change when you're writing predominantly action. But I think ultimately when it comes to the details of how you flesh out your writing scenes, I think ultimately one thing you have to remember, I'm not sure if you noticed that, but when it comes to choreography, the main theme of this discussion is how to deal with choreography and how to make fights interesting, because choreography by itself is not interesting. So the techniques that we went over, we went over adding a story to the choreography, adding characterization to the choreography, adding power logic to the choreography. When we went down into the details, what we were talking about was adding personality to the choreography, adding detail and visual experience to the choreography. At the end of the day, when you're writing a fight scene, what you're ultimately fighting what you as a writer are fighting is your ability to convey that fight scene to the readers and also to prevent the readers from skimming. As a writer, that's what you should be aiming to prevent. If you are creating fights that readers can skim without penalty, you're not doing it right. And I would recommend changing your strategy. Okay, good. Scully, I'm glad that you were able to get something. I think you should make a video for this and the others. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad you guys got something out of it. You guys can ask a few more questions. I will stay on for a little bit longer. Yeah, let's stay on for 8 more minutes, and you guys can mention more things now, or ask more questions. Now, Skelly mentioned last week that he wants to do a writer's corner, and I guess we can do that next week. So, literally just joined Discord after like a year of hesitation because of how valuable it was. Oh, Ryan, jeez. Well, cool. Also, Skelly, and Prower, if the books take up, or if they take off, should we invite people who are fans of the books onto the Discord server? Would you be comfortable with that or not? Because then it would just turn into like discussing like things that I write. But that might be something worthwhile. It's just because like other writers have they have Discord setups, so I just kind of wonder what you guys would feel about that. Oh, oops. Oh no. 1 second, everyone. I'm just trying to move something aside. Just waiting. Oh, what is going on? My stuff isn't working. Oh, I think the switch turned off. That's why. There we go. Okay, I can now see your guys' chat. Oh, okay, cool. Well, no, Master Gray, like at the end of the day, like I'd rather only have one Discord server, but maybe create dedicated channels and make roles. Yeah, I think if it comes down to it, I'm pretty sure we can just make roles for the channel. And at the end of the day, like it's going to be marketed towards anime fans anyway, so we're probably still going to get anime fans. Okay. So, let me just make sure. Okay, so for the writing room stuff, for Skelly here. Skelly, what kind of stuff do you want to like cover on the writing room? You just want to have a time like just spitballing ideas for a story? Because, so Skelly wants to do a writing room, so I assume that's like bringing all your guys' ideas together. Maybe we'll write a story and we'll upload it on somewhere and see what we get. I think that'd be fair. It'll probably only be a short story though, so we probably have to like also work through that. Come on, Switch. Come on, Switch. Turn on. But yeah, if you guys have any... Kiku looks like he needs a hand. Yeah, Tim. If you guys have any other things you want to add or ask, now is the time. Come on, Switch. Huh. Oh, really not turning on. Oh, got one. Alright, cool. We'll have to see. Like, it all depends on how popular the thing is. Alright, so let's check out while you guys are here. We're going to play just a little bit more Pokemon. I caught up to Kaku's yesterday. Oh, cool. And Luffy will get... I haven't been reading Kaku's in a while. I should go on Mangadex and check it out. Let the Pokemon hold that never-changing stone. Oh, that's the Everstone. Isn't it pretty late? Oh, I just want to do one capture of Reggie, God, Reggie, what is the last one's name? Regirock? I just want to do one capture and then I'll call it a day there. It's because, let me just look at my time. Yeah, I got 4 more minutes. Just want to do a quick run around. Talking about Pokemon, Eternatus is coming this week's episode. Oh yeah, Miguel. Yeah, it is. Well, that's exciting. Let's see. Where is this Everstone? It must be in this one. Ah, yeah. Okay, here it is. Oval. Wait, do I not have Everstones? There's no way. There's no way I don't have an Everstone. Okay. I need to sort this by name. It's Everstone, right? It is. Ah, there it is. Oh, I was about to freak out. I was like, there's no way I don't have one. Reggie Rock, thank you guys. Oh, nice anime, miss. Oh, that's cool. That's cool, Random Trainer X. So, you got it? That wasn't that hard. Come on, Game Freak. What happened to Gen 3? This is such a dumb puzzle. Like, holy crap, man. This is so dumb. Game Freak, this is what you call creativity? Holy crap, you guys are creatively bankrupt, man. I remember when I had to bring a werelord into a random room for no reason. Alright. No, not yet. Man, these guys. So, let me fix this guy up. Hyper Potion. I should have just used the full restore, actually. Paralyze heal. Nice. Actually, you know what? Oh, I have 888 potions. That's much better. Oh, oops. Let's just power up Dio. I have to say, getting the birds with the most fun. Oh, okay. Remember, you had to actually find the Reggie. Oh man, Miguel, best time of my life, man. Best time of my life. Excellent, excellent, Dio. You are now powerful, Dio. Ah, the old man. I just love that because that brought so many. Like, you know how like how elementary school kids are when they're saying like, oh yo, you have to go to this place and like spin around 5 times and then all of a sudden you'll get Mew 3 or something like that. You know, like schoolyard urban legends as to where to get cool Pokemon. It was just cool that you had something like that with the Reggies. And now look at us. Look where we are. I'm stepping on lights and putting an Everstone on my Pokemon. Okay, Reggie Rock. I'm gonna capture you. Oh, yeah, Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave. Alright, excellent. Now, I don't know if I want to fight it. Let's see if I can catch it on the first go. Let's see if it'll let me catch it. I mean, maybe it'll work. 1. Alright, we'll fight. Oh, Dio. You're too strong. Calyrex. Battle Frontier was a great time for Ash in general, man. You know, honestly, I wouldn't mind if the Pokemon anime just brought out a new region that's anime exclusive, just so that Ash can win. Like, make it as serious as all the other regions. Just let Ash win, man. That's all I want for the kid. Alright, cool. Here we go. Dusk Ball. Nah, random. I can't be like, go. Anime said, it's sad that people are just data mining the answers. I probably wouldn't have figured that out. I should have just whistled without going online, though. Oh! I haven't looked up the answers for mine yet, Anime Miss. I figured out the whistle, and the Everstone made sense. But it is unfortunate when people just look at online for the answers. Like, come on, it's a puzzle. Calyrex, no! Good thing this isn't a Nuzlocke anymore. Oh, Calyrex. You poor thing. Oh, you poor thing. Urshifu. Wait. If you hit all the credits after beating Classic Adventure All-Star and Melee, you unlock Toad. The most bust. Oh man, that's funny, Prower. The most frustrating Ash loss for me was the one kid who was basically his clone. Oh yeah, Richie. Yeah, it was Richie. Yeah, well, that was the first time that the Pokemon anime ever really wanted to make people understand. There's always someone who is just a tiny bit better than you. He could have the same stuff you do, but he is better than you. And that's going to be sometimes that just happens. Honestly, the Pokemon anime is really cynical. Like the Pokemon anime, oh. What kind of like overall message is telling kids? It's okay to be stupid? Or like, you know, this is what happens when you're stupid, when you don't follow type advantage? Actually, the Pokemon anime doesn't even reward type advantage. Like, the one time Ash used a type advantage versus Elaine, and it still doesn't work out in the long run. Oh, poor guy. I still have horrible flashbacks to Kalos. At least Tobias. Tobias made sense for why Ash lost. Come on, Regirock. Come on, Regirock. Your brother came with us so easily. Yes? Yes? God. Wow. Really holding out here. So Trip, how did your dad bring all these legendaries to Galar? I don't know. Clearly my dad, it's making more sense. My dad, the Pokeball man, clearly went around, caught all these Pokemon from other regions, and this is probably why he left my mom, because he's like an international Pokemon smuggler. And he came and he just released all these Pokemon into the region, and now he left them here for me to catch. And really, this was my dad's twisted way of saying that he wanted me to be an ultimate Pokemon master. That's really what I'm understanding here. The Pokeball man captured everything, released it in Galar. Because of that, he was a legendary criminal, and now we're here. Okay, together. Okay, let ring out a bit. No, got that. So 1 to 3, I think. So 3-point pass. Okay. Is Regigigas here? Smashing job, Chief. Alright, cool. Okay, guys. Calyrex memories really is best as he, along with the people living in the Conchandra, can't remember if he rode those two. Yeah, Ho and Ash was also smart. For example, for the first gym, he knew electric wouldn't be affected, so he trained Pikachu to learn Iron Tail. Yeah, Ho and Ash was smart. That was a good Ash. Okay, guys. We're going to call it there. It's 11 o'clock for me. I'm going to call it there. I'm happy that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week. We'll decide whether or not we do short stories next week or we do something else or we just play games. But yeah, thank you all for being here. So thank you to Miguel, Animamus, Prower, Edens, Random, Hunter, Skelly, Ryan, Master Gray, Black Fox. Who else do we got here? Random Trainer X, Matthew, Timothy, Young Man 5K, Ryan, Tiandre, well he's gone, Hunter. Yeah, good night to all of you guys that were here. And thank you so much for watching, John. Good night, John. And yeah, hopefully tomorrow we'll have the Hero Academia spoilers. Actually, I'll just very quickly check to see if we have Hero Academia spoilers, but I don't think we do. Let me just very quickly check. And 1 second, just checking, because we do have One Piece spoilers, and probably nothing. Yeah, nothing. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a great night. And ending the stream in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Till next time.